Here we go. Welcome, everybody. It is March 17th, 2024, and I think you all know what that means. Only 94 days until Juneteenth. I ruined it for the Irish. Now, happy, that is true. It's 94 days away, but happy St. Patrick's Day or whatever. I'm sure that I should care more, what with my red beard and all, but I just don't. I wore a green shirt. That's everything you're all getting out of me. Matt was going to wear a green shirt, but didn't want to become the invisible man.
Yeah, because if you didn't know, that's actually a green screen behind me, which I figured was obvious to everybody, because while it's pretty good, there's still a green color. Like, I have a green beard, basically,
halo,
right now.
Little halo going on. Yeah, that's enough green.
And you feel my halo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, today is, I just already announced it in chat, even though Jimmy didn't see it, because I told him about it earlier. Today's Zen mode. For all those people who are like, oh, just Matt gets so angry all the time. Yeah. And it's, while it's real and in the moment, it's not like it's impossible for me to not do that. So I'm in full on Zen mode today. Come on, theists. You can't possibly harsh my mellow. If you harsh my mellow, I'll give you an extra minute to talk.
People who know you well too would also go like, that's not really Matt angry. It's in Matt intense, but not angry. Now, the intensity can read a certain way,
yes,
but it's not. I've seen you angry maybe twice, and I don't think in person. I think on air, maybe twice. I feel like I can recall a thing that looked more like it. But yeah, I don't know. Whatever. People can. The phone number's down there, 720-619-2288. There's also a web link in the description. And if you have reasons that we should believe in God, astrology, some sort of alternate spirituality, if you have a supernatural claim, a supernatural belief, you believe in ghosts, you believe in genies. I feel like when you start with ghosts, the next thing on the list, if you want to do a list of other alternate supernatural things, it's like you say ghost, and then you have to go all the way to what most people think is childish from there. Like there's not a natural progression down the list. It's most people believe in ghosts of some kind, but then it's like genies, leprechauns, unicorns, whatever. I'm trying to think of a good transitionary. I mean, if we were in the Middle East, maybe we would say jinns, right? Isn't there a popular jinn belief out there? Are jinns a part of Islam?
Yes.
Okay, good enough. Demons. I could have done that. If you believe in ghosts, if you believe in demons, then maybe jinns. Let's see what the live chat's given us. So, anybody in live chat got ideas for things that I'm missing on here? So I feel like there should be an easier transition. Anyway, we'd love to talk to you about your spiritual beliefs, your religious beliefs. And if you have the truth and we're just missing it, we'd like to hear it. So call us. Ooh. We're going to have some questions about it. But yeah, let's do that.
I did it in the vMix chat instead of in the messenger chat, because I had a brand new idea for a new show that I absolutely want to do, and I'm absolutely going to do. I have the name. I know kind of a little bit, but I think I'll do it here. I'll do it somewhere else, but that's my idea, and I'm not going to tell nobody but Jimmy right now. So only Jimmy knows my brilliant idea.
No worries. I want to make a joke about it, but it'll give away what your idea is.
Not only that, but I want you to stew on it so you can completely shoot it down and be like, yeah, I know that sounds like it's a good idea, but here's why it sucks. And trust me, Jimmy and I have had this same conversation about 20 other things. And there's a good number of times where one of us will think for a little while and come up with, nah, that's the dumbest thing we've ever heard of. We just really thought it was cool for a minute.
I think it'll be entertaining for sure. It's just something that immediately came to mind. So I'm going to DM you on Facebook why?
Welcome to the DM show. Thank you all for tuning in today to the Sunday show on the line, where Jimmy and I are going to secretly talk back and forth in DMs and not tell you what we're talking about.
That's right.
But no, this is a call-in show, like all the shows here on the Line Network. There's a lot of other shows. Like I don't have the list for the rest of the week. I do have Skeptalk's going to be Forrest Valkai and Aron Ra.
Yep.
Tuesdays, Chewed Gum will be Alyssa Lube and Erica Gutzik-Gibbon. And next Wednesday's Hang-Up will be myself and Nick Fish, the president of American Atheist, because American Atheist Annual Convention is coming up at the end of this month. I know that many of you probably haven't heard a whole bunch about it. It's in Philadelphia. I will have to miss it because I have a debate that weekend in Tampa, Florida. Good Friday evening. I will be debating. It's like I'm Elmer Fudd. Yeah. I'll be debating the resurrection and then getting back just in time for Sunday, which is not only Easter, but it's my birthday. That's God's gift to the world once again, me.
Hell yeah. We're going to start calls here in just a moment, but speaking of birthdays, you can still go to linemerch.com. Matt and I have competing designs right now. These are the designs you have to pick between. Oh, well, that apparently doesn't just
I'm also planning on reusing that logo for the thing I sent you.
Nice. These are your designs, the Unafraid to Disappoint Daddy, magical or otherwise, or your N-Boss of Atheism designs, available on shirts, hoodies. I think mine's available on buttons and a mug. Yours is on a mug and a holographic sticker. Right now, I am actually winning by 10. I think we've sold 32 of the Unafraid to Disappoint Daddy and 22. And that's after I deduct. I bought a couple for gifts. That's after I deducted the ones I bought for gifts of the Unafraid to Daddy. So go to linemerch.com, get your stuff. It's a fun thing for the birthday month, little competition. Speaking of competition, we'll also be doing one on May 3rd. Matt, Forrest, and I will be back here. That's over a month from now, but I'm announcing it now because it's for charity and the event will go up soon. We'll be doing a pre-show competition on May 4th. We're doing our the next big Recovering from Religion fundraiser for the year of 2024. The night before, Forrest, Matt, and I are going to get on and see who of the three of us can raise the most the night before. I did $7,000 by myself the night before last year. So now we're like, let's bring in a couple of heavy hitters and see how hard Jimmy and Matt can fight to try and be a close second place, because it'll be Forrest. I don't want to sound disappointed.
I raised $14,000 to send kids to summer camp, and I had to dye my beard to make it happen. Mm-hmm. Forrest is going to win, and that's A-O-frickin-K.
It's for charity, so we're all going to have fun. All right. I'm ready to jump in. You ready to jump in?
Yeah, you driving? Go for it.
I don't care. Anybody can drive. We had
It's good for my zen to just let you steer, and then I can just jump in. And if I start to lose my cool, I can go for a walk.
There's an interesting one on here that almost looks like a person. I got to get their name tag ready, which is why I'm vamping a little bit. But it looks like they are an atheist who holds supernatural beliefs, which is obviously possible. It's just an interesting combo we don't get a lot of. So let's go ahead and talk to perhaps Sora. You can correct me on the name pronunciation if needs be. Sora in India, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Good morning to both of you.
Hello. Morning.
I don't know. Good evening or good morning. I don't know. But anyway, thanks for
we do hear you. The audio quality is not incredible, but is the pronunciation Sora or Shora? How do we say it? Sora. All right. Welcome, Sora. So it says here you believe in a higher form of life, but not a god, it sounds like. Yeah. Not specifically a god, but you want to present your case for a higher form of life.
Yes. No, I just want to know what you call a life form who has higher intelligence than human beings, according to your point.
I wouldn't personally call that a higher form of life. I would just call it a different form of life. I conceivably believe that there are, I find it very likely that there are aliens in the universe, just not necessarily that I've ever interacted with humanity or made it anywhere close to our planet. And it's conceivable to me that there may be aliens somewhere that are much more intelligent than us, but I wouldn't call them a higher form in the same way that I don't think we're a higher form of life, except subjectively we value ourselves more than other species, but I don't consider us in any objective way a higher form of life than, say, caterpillars.
No, regarding intelligence, I think we are much better than other animals, right?
Sure.
So maybe there are some other life forms who have higher intelligence and brain processing power
I
than us,
agree.
right?
I just agreed with that and told you I just wouldn't call that a higher form of life.
So, you know, I have actually direct proof and direct experiences. So, which I don't want to tell right now. Actually, I want to come to Austin, and it's a very long story. So, I just want to say that I have been experiencing, telepathy. You know what is telepathy? Right?
You've been experiencing what?
I'm not able to understand anything you're saying right now.
Telepathy, sir. It is like a mind-to-mind talking without any
Telepathy.
without any machines.
Got it.
Telepathy. Yes, telepathy.
You believe you have been experiencing telepathy?
Yes.
And what is? How do you prove it?
Well, I was gonna say, what form are you saying that you are telepathically communicating with aliens? Is what you think?
Yes, aliens are Hindu gods mostly. But I want to.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Aliens or Indian god, I think he said.
Or Hindu god. Yes, aliens are Hindu gods.
Hindu god. Okay. You believe that you are telepathically communicating with aliens or Hindu god. How did you verify that you aren't hearing voices in your head that are not supernatural? Sura. Hello. Are you there? Soda, we don't hear you. Check if you muted the phone with your face, but we're not going to spend all day trying to reconnect out and the call itself drop. Yep.
So there's, granted, there's always going to be tech issues, and we appreciate the fact that people are calling from, wherever they're going to call from, and it's going to be difficult to hear on occasion. I'm thrilled that somebody called from India, even if I couldn't understand a good chunk of it, and it wasn't necessarily because of language differences, as language and tech and everything else, but the things that I could understand, I still didn't understand. So for those people who are calling in, if you say you believe in a higher power or a higher life form, be prepared to define what you mean by that, because I genuinely don't know what you mean by higher life form. Higher is a sort of weasel word. It doesn't tell me anything. I did appreciate the fact that he seemed to mention more intelligent, like a creature of greater intelligence. And so I'm like, let's assume that I met aliens. First of all, I don't know that their intelligence is greater than ours or not, but whether we'll just assume it is. They may know more than us. I don't know how that's relevant to anything to this show. Until such time as you can provide evidence that you've encountered these more intelligent beings, then you don't have reason to believe that they exist or that anybody's interacted with them. But even if you did, even if you walked in and said, hey, here's my alien buddy, he's twice as smart as you, that has nothing to do with a god and has nothing to do with anything supernatural. And so the only kind of supernatural element of this was that he seems to think he's communicating telepathically. And if I heard something, I didn't know what we were.
That might have been on my end. I was saying something. He is reconnected. We can bring him, but yeah, it was interesting because he's called as an atheist, and so I'll bring him back on. But says he might be communicating telepathically with Hindu gods.
Yeah, how do you know that?
Soda, we've got you back on the air.
Yes, can you?
Yeah.
Yes, actually, higher form of life means who have more advanced intelligence and brain processing power than us. So our thinking ability is actually not up to the mark. There may be who can think 100 times more powerful than us.
Sorta. So right now we're talking about, we remember the stuff you said. You had said you believed that you were communicating telepathically with either aliens or Hindu gods. So first thing I want to ask you is, you called in and said that you're an atheist. Do you believe in the Hindu gods?
I believe morally they won't do any good, but they are simply interested in worship and their own power status.
Sure.
They want to just maintain their power status.
Do you believe that the Hindu gods exist? Not do you believe are they good? Do you believe they exist?
Yes, based on my experience and.
Okay, so for the record, we're going to change it in here. You are not an atheist. You are a theist. You believe in it, whether or not you think the God is good or bad. You believe the gods exist. So that's atheism, and theism has nothing to do with what's good or bad. It has to do with what you believe. Okay, so now.
Okay, I'm anti-God. I am anti-God.
Sure, you're anti. You don't like gods, but you are. Yes. So I'll throw that in there for you too. But you believe they exist because, correct me if I'm wrong, because you think you are having telepathic conversations with the gods, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, apparently I can't fit that much in the thing. All right, great. So that's where we're at. Now, Matt, do you have any questions for him?
Well,
see,
how do you tell?
Shorta, hang on. Matt's going to ask you questions.
We have only...
Hang on. Matt, go ahead.
If you are getting telepathic messages, how do you tell that you're actually receiving a telepathic message? And how do you tell who it's from?
It's from any of those Hindu gods. And
that's not what I asked.
Actually, I have some...
That's not what I asked. Okay. I said, if you are getting messages telepathically, how do you tell that you're actually getting telepathic messages, and how do you tell who they're from?
There are actually Hindu temples, Hindu everywhere. There are worshippers and followers, true believers of Hindu gods in India, especially. You can find
that's also not remotely an answer to my question. My question was, if you are getting a message that you describe as a telepathic message, part one is, how do you tell the difference between a telepathic message and just your brain doing something that's not communicating? And number two, how do you tell who the message is from? What method or mechanism do you have to show you who the message is coming from?
Soda, did you disconnect again? All right. We're just going to move on because there's not really a point to we're not going to keep reconnecting calls to what is fundamentally a person who seems to be saying that they are hearing voices in their head, and that the proof that those come from Hindu gods is that there are lots of Hindus who believe in Hindu gods. So called in saying they were an atheist, then changed it to no, I'm anti-God. I don't know what to do with that. So thank you and everything, but sort of good luck. There's no way to continue this call, I don't think. A reminder that the phone number is 720-619-2288. By the way, there is now a poll in the chat. Would love for people to respond to it. We are asking, is it reasonable to believe in God? And so far, 8% of you, which is going to be around 30-something of you, about 8% of you have said that, yes, it is reasonable to believe in God. If you would like to call and have a conversation, we would love to hear you, shall we say, defend that proposition. We'll have questions for you on how it could be reasonable. Also coming up this week, great shows tomorrow on Skeptalk. Is Matt already? You already went through most of them. So Skeptalk tomorrow is Forrest and Aron. Tuesday is Alyssa Lube and Erica from Cuts at Gibbon. Wednesday is Matt and Nick Fish, and Thursday is Arden and Dr. Ben. But we'll be at probably at a special time. It'll probably have to get pushed, but that isn't fully confirmed yet. It'll probably be a couple hours later than normal. Otherwise, as I said, phone number 720-619-2288. We would love to hear somebody defend the reasonability of God, and there's a web link in the description. We'll take a call from Xander. Xander on planet Earth. You are on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you prove you're on planet Earth?
Sir,
That's fine.
no. Okay, I'm sorry for my anxiety in bad English in advance. So please take it easy on me.
Okay, go ahead.
I can't promise that, but you picked a good day because it's Matt's Zen day. So
That's right.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm afraid of death because of the idea of not existing itself and the idea of a God that may currently be responsible for my indescribable bad luck. What do you advise me? What should I do?
Well, part of me wants you to describe your indescribable bad luck.
Well, the last year I got kidnapped and I had a brain damage by the kidnappers. And my life work, I'm a discoverer. I discover some stuff in math, and my work has been taken away from me. So basically, my entire life is fucked.
Well, I'm definitely sorry to hear that. So you were kidnapped and suffered brain damage.
Yeah. Yes.
And how were you freed from your kidnappers?
Yeah. No. Well, I can't really say that because it was my own family.
Okay. I don't know what to say.
Has your family?
Because why did your family kidnap you?
They thought I was ruining my own life.
They thought
they wanted me to study, and I was in high school. They wanted me to study and get good grades and stuff. But I refused because I had my eyes set on a goal, and this goal is solving a math problem that nobody had a solution for about 64 years, which I solved.
Wait, did you email me?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to go into this call today.
Yeah, Xander, I'm going to actually mute the call, but you can hear us. There isn't a responsible way for us to proceed. Basically, the only thing that I can say to you is seek out mental health resources, therapy, psychiatrist, start there, and that the answers to your problems are not a call-in show about whether or not God exists.
Yeah.
Certainly nothing presented here do I see a need for a supernatural entity, but we're not going to debate it. We're not going to argue it. And we're not going to take for our opponent on any given issue somebody who needs to seek some help. That neither of us are mental health professionals, nor would we, even if we had a mental health professional on the show, would we say that is the time to call in and get a free session or something. So seek out mental help, and that's the best I can do for you. Good luck to you, Xander.
Yeah. I didn't reply to the email because I didn't have anything substantive or useful to put in that email.
Yeah. And
So,
there's
yeah,
just a certain point where we have to try and be a little bit responsible. And yeah. So
I have the email and we're moving on.
So far, we have more than 40 of you, getting close to 50 of you, who have said that it is reasonable to believe in God, but in my call system, I don't see people who are calling to defend that proposition. It looks like there might be one person queuing up. While we wait for them, we'll talk to Eli in Colorado, who has a question about dealing with theist cult member customers. Go ahead, Eli. You're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hi, yes. I just want to make sure, can you hear me all right without hearing yourselves?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let you know, I am in the car. I'm parked. I am in a safe, legal spot.
Cool. Go ahead and give us your problem here.
Yeah. So I'm an Uber driver, hence being in the car. And, you know, most of who I interact with, I just assume are theists because that's most of the people around, you know. But very occasionally, there are two particular that stick out in my mind. I get people who, through conversations and whatnot, I feel are doing harm to those around them through their religion. So, like, one of which was someone who I overheard on the phone that he had taken his son out of schools and put him into a online school run by Brigham Young University, because his friends at school were talking about how gay people exist and are okay. And it's things like that where when you get into my car, it's not like calling into this show where you're expecting some pushback on your religion, right? So I don't feel it's my place to try and say anything, but also I feel really bad for that kid, and I feel by not saying anything, I'm complicit in things like that.
Yeah. So, no, I have, specifically because you brought up what is the BYU high school program. For the record, the BYU online high school program isn't telling him that gay people are bad or anything. It is a secular education program. It's just done through BYU. Secular in that there's no religious influences. I started college early and supplemented high school credits that I needed by doing the BYU high school program also. And in fact, the biology course even teaches evolution. So while I also feel sorry for that kid because the kid is clearly being taken away from public, adulthood's going to fucking beat the shit out of that kid as he tries to adjust to the real world. Not to mention trying to, as a kid, live as a Mormon. None of that is your place. You are a hired driver, and if you hear something illegal, you report that to the authorities, and otherwise, I would keep your mouth shut, personally.
Okay.
You know you could get fired if you said something, right?
Not necessarily. I mean...
Yes, definitely necessarily. It has happened to many people, in fact. If you are... If they report that you are even just being critical of their religious beliefs or whatever, even in an invited conversation, the Uber doesn't have you unless you're in a union. And no, Uber doesn't have unions in Colorado or anywhere.
Well, I am in a union. It's just not for Uber. I'm an electrician as well. So.
Sure. Unrelated. You don't have any workers' rights, and on Uber's end, they would rather go, I'm going to get rid of this risk. This person who is boisterous about religious and or political things in the car and potentially affects our bottom line. They do not give a fuck about you. None of those rideshare companies, none of the food delivery companies, they fire their people. So keep your mouth shut and mind your own business unless you hear something illegal.
Yeah. I don't know that it's technically like firing. That was my not necessarily, because independent contractor, not hired work. But
I get it.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess the other one was just dropping off a Jehovah's Witness. I don't know if pastor is the right word for JWs, but and basically, as I was talking to him, I figured out he was going to a hospital to talk someone out of a blood transfusion.
So
And
he was
it
doing
wa-
he
it-
was doing so he was doing something that freedom allows him to do.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't say anything. I guess the thing for me is just how do I? It's very difficult for me to have those kinds of rides because of I want to say something and I know I can't, and it feels like I am at part in like
Yeah, I get it, Eli.
helping these things succeed.
Here's the thing, man. How much stuff in any given day, how much suffering could you prevent in a given day that you don't? Unfortunately, you just need, I guess, some level of perspective on it. Literally Matt and I could be doing other things right now that reduces the suffering of others. Hopefully this does that also. But, you don't give every dollar of disposable income you could to charity. You don't. There's a whole lot that happens in the world that is terrible because humans are generally allowed to exist as themselves. And so again, the advice is still the same. It's if you can't handle it, then you probably can't work there, is probably what it's going to come down to. You literally just have to swallow it down and go, I was privy to this ride that happened, but things like this or much worse than this are happening millions of times a day. And I'm not doing shit about those things. Why am I compelled to do shit about this? Obviously, if you see somebody drowning and you could save them, that's a different assessment. But we're talking about something that people have full rights in this country to do.
Right.
I posted a question yesterday to both Facebook and Twitter, specifically just to see the responses. I made almost no comments or replies at all on either of them. The only thing I did was go back and edit the post to add one bit of clarity, because there were people who were like, so what I posted was, if you were out in public and you watched one person hitting another, what would you do? Would you mind your own business? Would you call the police? Would you intervene? Would you scold them? What if the other person is a child? How does that change your response and why? And I had to edit this later to say, I didn't say anything about two people fighting. I said one person hitting another. And it was interesting to people like, oh, there's not enough information. Okay. Well, it depends on what the reason is. Well, please list your reasons why it's okay for one person to hit another person. I mean, if you got there late and it was self-defense and the other person started, sure. Yeah. So in the spirit of this, you're walking around and you see two people arguing, and they're just walking along together and they're arguing. And then one of them yells and then hits the other one. So that's the beginning of it. That's a better description of what I was actually talking about, because that's what happens when somebody decides to abuse their partner in public. That's what happens when somebody decides to abuse their child in public. And the bigger point here was about, what does it take to get you to intervene, and when should we intervene? Because if there was a family at the restaurant with us and the kid got a spanking, I'm no longer sure that I can stay quiet. I've pretty much reached a point where I'm trying to figure out the best thing to say, and probably the best thing to do is to pull out your phone and film it, and then use that later. But I thought about saying snarky things like, "Oh, you're really tough," or "My gosh, you're such a good parent." Just throwing the sarcasm out and stuff like that. But most people have been conditioned to say, "Oh, if it's a parent and they're disciplining their kid, I should stay quiet. I should stay out of it. I think that's bullshit. And if they're proud enough to hit a kid in public, I'm proud enough to call them out on it. And so I'm not going to be remaining quiet anymore. Doesn't mean I'm going to start a fight. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily calling the cops, because they're not going to do anything about it. But standing quietly by while I watch someone abuse someone else, I'm not going to do it anymore. And you've listed, Eli, one of the many reasons that I'm not an Uber driver.
Yeah. Which, by the way, was why I mentioned if you can't handle it, maybe you can't be an Uber driver.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of choice at the moment. It's not the only thing I can do that's in between the other things. So
I will say you should take a little bit of a lesson from the first example, which was that you had an assumption about the schooling because it was from BYU's high school program. And so had you tried to speak up as though you were opposed to them putting into some like sort of gay therapy camp, you would have potentially put your job in harm's way. And again, I'm not saying it's a good thing for parents to pull their kids out of school to get away from the secular world. That would be what I have opposition to. Specifically using the BYU online BYU. The online BYU course wouldn't have been a part of a problem because I happen to know firsthand what that course is like.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate the input. I don't think I have anything more to add other than saying I can't, I've never seen anyone whose suffering has been directly alleviated by your guys' show, but I definitely know you guys alleviate my boredom in between rides. So
cool. All right.
Cool.
Thank you. Have a good one, Eli.
All right. Have a good one.
I will say, I think I have, I don't know if this means that we differ on this or not. Certainly if I saw physical violence, I feel different about that than, for example, no, I think I can't be an Uber driver. If I was aware that I was driving someone to, try and talk somebody out of a blood transfusion, I think I would pull over and cancel the ride and tell them I'm not comfortable in participating in if for legal reasons. Sure, I'm not. It's not a bank robbery, but yeah, I feel that I would not be able to be an Uber driver, and so that's why I say I think your options are keep your mouth shut or don't be an Uber driver, because if he relies on that income. It's easy for me to say because I don't need to be an Uber driver. I don't know if he relies on that income or not. And if he has alternatives, if he does stop doing it. Anyway. Okay. Let's start with,
Really?
we'll go. Yeah, you saw it
Yeah,
too.
this is a good test of my Zen.
All right, we'll do that one. John in Ohio, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Let me ask you this first, John. Are you yourself a Christian?
Yes, I am.
All right, great. And so you would like to talk about Hitler being a Christian.
Well, I was listening to one of your other programs, and Forrest and Aron Ra were claiming that Hitler was a Christian, and I was wondering if you guys thought that too.
First of all, his name is Aron Ra. Yeah, go ahead. I have a follow-up question, but go ahead, Matt.
Since Hitler was raised Catholic and identified himself in public speeches as a German Christian and not a Catholic, and in his private diaries referred to himself as a Christian, and advocated for ideas, even though he was into mysticism and occultism, and it was a hot mess. The Nazis still ran around with Gott mit uns on their belt buckles, but publicly and privately, Hitler professed to be a Christian. Now, do I think he was a Christian the way I used to be? Probably not. And does it matter to me whether he was a Christian? Not in the slightest.
Yeah, John, I have two questions for you. John, let's put Hitler on the shelf for a moment. Was the Nazi movement a Christian nationalist movement?
No.
Okay. So historically, John, you are incorrect. But second, man, I'm so thrown by. I'm so thrown by.
Socialist movement.
Excuse me. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Fascism and socialism are not compatible. You cannot be both at the same time. They are completely different. The fact that they threw the word socialist in, this is something that silly Republicans who don't know what socialism is say, and I'm suspecting we've met one here today. You cannot have the Christian nationalism side of that was core to Nazism and still call yourself socialist. Socialism is an extremely egalitarian thing. You can't do nationalism or Christian nationalism and be socialist. But even if you could, let me ask you this, John. Was the hatred of Jews that was so core to Nazism a result of, reliant upon Christian, from the pulpit, popularized ideas of anti-Semitism? Was Christianity responsible for the anti-Semitism?
Well, not my form of Christianity.
I'm
no.
not asking about your form of Christianity. Was Christianity, was canonized anti-Semitism that was extremely popular through the centuries leading up, from the pulpit within the Catholic Church and lots of other Christian denominations, was that responsible for the anti-Semitic hatred that the Nazi movement had within it?
Well, I know that Martin Luther was against the Jews.
Answer yes or no. Was Christianity responsible for the anti-Semitic popular attitudes amongst Nazis?
I would say no.
Then you have so far shown in 3 different instances that you do not know a thing about history. But I suppose... Go ahead, Matt.
So here's the thing, John. I'm not Forrest and I'm not Aron, so I'm not responsible for what they said. What I said a minute ago, was I wrong in any way?
Well, I was focusing on what Jimmy was saying. I forgot what you said. Can you repeat it, please?
I said that Hitler, both publicly and privately, professed he was raised a Catholic. He got irritated with the Catholic Church. He publicly identified as a German Christian and not a Catholic, and privately he identified as Christian or Catholic, depending on the circumstances, and found Christianity incredibly useful. Do any of us, since none of us know what Hitler's actual beliefs were, other than what he's able to profess, what difference does it make whether Hitler was a Christian, a Catholic, or a godless heathen just trying to use that?
Well, I would agree with that he used it. I don't think it has anything to do with Christianity.
It's so strange to me, John, that I could put all that together and ask a question and have you completely ignore the question.
I think he may have manipulated in his own mind.
I don't care. The question was, what difference does it make whether Hitler was a Christian or not? That's the question.
It doesn't. I just wondered what your viewpoints were on that matter, since it was on one of your programs. I wondered what you felt about it.
You have them. I've repeated my viewpoint twice. Do you find any flaw with my viewpoint?
Well, does Jimmy agree with you?
Okay, John, I'm still trying to stay in Zen mode today, so I'll stay as calm as I can. What the fuck difference does it make whether Jimmy agrees with me or not? I'm asking you if you agree with what I said.
Well, I understand what you're saying, that you think that he was a Christian.
I didn't ask you, John. I didn't ask you, John, you obfuscating nuisance, whether or not you understood what I said. I asked if I was correct or if you agreed with what I said. Why is it so difficult for you to answer a question?
He then gave a summary of what you said, and it was incorrect.
No, I don't agree that he was a Christian.
Which is not what Matt said.
Wow. Which is not what I said. So you can't listen to what I say. You can't honestly respond to what I say. You don't give a damn. So, John, I no longer care what you have to say. Goodbye, sir. That's as absolute Zen as I can maintain. If you're not going to listen to what I say, if you're not going to answer the questions that I ask, if you're not going to in any way try to demonstrate how I'm wrong, if you're calling to complain about something somebody else said on a different show, and you can't engage honestly, I don't see why I should waste my audience's time at all with your thoughts. So we've moved on from John, the theist, who really, really, really wants to get Hitler off of his roll call. Well, the problem is, and there's books on the subject, there are articles on the subject, you can go. It is a complicated question to answer. What anyone's personal beliefs are It is more complicated when you look at someone's entire life. At some point, I was a committed, Jesus-loving, Bible-thumping Southern Baptist Christian, and now I'm not. So in 100 years, if they said, what was Matt Dillahunty's positions on religion? It would depend on where in life we were. But from the time that Hitler rose to prominence, he had come out of a Catholic upbringing. He had problems with the clergy, but he didn't have any problems using the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church didn't have any problems supporting him. He publicly said in speeches that he was not a Catholic, but was in fact a German Christian. And yet in private, in his diaries, and this is what's important because anything else that he said publicly could have been viewed as propaganda. It could have been used as someone trying to use Christianity towards their own purposes. And I'll touch on that in just 1 minute or 1 second here. But when you read someone's private readings, what's in their diary, when they profess in their diary that they feel they are doing the work of God, that's not an atheist. When they profess in their private writings that they think it is critical to, their religious views to exterminate Jews, that's not an atheistic position. It's rooted in religion, which is what Jimmy was getting at. But let's imagine for a second that Hitler was a terrible, terrible atheist who decided that he was so mad at the church and the gullible people who were incredibly useful, they all believe what the church says. And so he's going to use a corrupted form of Christianity to convince those people to do his bidding. What does that tell you about Christianity? It's almost worse if Hitler isn't a Christian, because that means somewhere out there, there's a whole bunch of people who've bought into a religion who are so gullible that they can have that religion used against them to commit atrocities. And neither they nor their God, if it exists, does anything at all to stop it. So while John called in to try to get us to tell Forrest and Aron, no, Hitler wasn't a Christian. I don't think you actually want that, John, because if Hitler wasn't ever a Christian in any sincere sense, not only do we have to explain why he's writing about things like that in his private diary, but we have to explain why good German Christians were committed on behalf of their religion to commit atrocities. Why is it that your religion doesn't offer you any protection from being duped? Just like good Christians in the United States are currently planning to vote for Donald Trump again, an individual on his, I don't know how many wife, I don't know how many I'll keep saying, I want to say indoctrinations, but indictments, criminal charges, how many porn stars he's going to pay off. When I was a good Southern Baptist Christian being raised and told what to do, I would never have thought that saying it'd be okay to grab people by the pussy would be the sort of thing that a good Christian person would say. I knew plenty of Christians who professed to be Christians who did stuff like that. So when we stack up all the things about, did Matt just compare Hitler to Trump? You bet your ass I did. You don't have any warrant to remove Hitler from your club, and you don't have any good leg to stand on for your club, because your club is a vile, repugnant cesspool of ignorance and stupidity being used to commit atrocities while spoon-feeding people just enough goodness to convince them that they're still doing something good. How's that for some Zen?
There have been so many of the premises, though, that he wouldn't have even begun to agree with. For example, he said that I believe he used it and yet rejected that Nazism was a Christian nationalist movement, which you can't say it wasn't nationalist. It was proudly nationalist. So how can you not add the Christian element and he successfully use it? The guy is, especially as soon as he said socialist, that it was a socialist movement, I knew we were not talking with a person who actually has any regard for what is historically true.
It's got socialist in the name, though, so it must be socialist.
And it's literally like, I always ask the follow-up, or I usually ask the follow-up when somebody says that about Nazis. Like, all right, was Nazism authoritarian? Yes. Now explain how it was socialist. because you cannot have authoritarian socialism. That defeats the fucking purpose. It is necessarily democratic, sometimes to a fault, because democracy is not perfect. It's fucking stupid shit, people say.
Amen.
Amen. All right. I did open a couple extra lines for people who want to defend the reasonability of believing in God but aren't necessarily atheist. However, we'll see how many of those we take. In the meantime, I guess I'm going to want a guide on how to pronounce this because I did verify it was spelled correctly. Is it still pronounced Stephen or is it Stepan? How do we say this? Stepan. All right, Stepan. You're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Give it to us.
All right. Hello. So thank you first for having me here. I appreciate speakers and this channel called The Line. Now, in the poll, in the YouTube channel poll, I see, is it reasonable to believe in God? Most people answered no. So I'm kind of stressed out after that, but I'm gonna try anyways. So I want to visit.
Well, you're on a channel that that caters to a lot of atheists. So of course, the poll is going to skew that way. If you're getting ready to present a logical argument for the existence of God, I'm going to let you do it. And I'm in full on Zen mode today, so you're in luck. But I want to let you know ahead of time that we're going to need to know how you're defining God.
Yeah.
That at some point is going to be important. Hang on. That at some point is going to be important, but I'm not going to say you have to necessarily start with that. So just be ready because we're going to need to know what it is you're claiming exists and then how you know it exists. That's it. Go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to define God first. So I would define God as the creator of the universe. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm fine with that as a description. The question then is, does that creator have intelligence and intent? Is it a thinking agent or is it just merely a force?
Oh, okay. So let me be more specific. So it's a logical creator that necessarily exists.
Stephen, maybe this can cut through. Do you have a specific God you believe in? Are you a Christian or anything?
I don't necessarily have a specific God, but I would say best fits is Christian.
Okay. Do you believe that you can pray to the God that Matt is asking you about?
Pray?
Yeah.
I would say that doesn't matter, kind of.
Would he hear it if you tried?
Argument. Have I tried to pray? Yeah, I guess.
Okay, so you do believe in it, not just basically, I'm not necessarily asking about the prayer stuff. You're right. It's not that important. Is this an interactive God is the main question we were asking.
I would say is logical like human beings.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I asked if it was an agent. Anyway, go ahead with your proof.
Okay, so start with the question. I know it has been kind of answered by both theism and atheism. Was math invented or discovered? So I know atheism answers it as invented, correct?
Okay. Whether math was invented or discovered is potentially in dispute, but how is that relevant to a God?
Okay.
See, when we create an argument, when we create an argument, the premises of an argument are a major premise and a minor premise that are connected by the median term there. And so if I say math was invented, or if I say math was discovered, does only one of those lead to the conclusion that a God exists?
Okay, I want to say both lead to conclusion that God exists.
Then if both answers lead to the conclusion that a God exists, then the question's irrelevant, isn't it?
Is it though? Because
yes, that's literally the definition of irrelevant. If you're going to ask a question that has two possible answers and both answers lead to the same conclusion, then the question is irrelevant, because it doesn't matter if you start with invented, you get to God, and it doesn't matter if you start with discovered, you get to God. If you don't understand that how and why this question is irrelevant, I guarantee you the rest of this is not going to go well.
Okay, then let me approach it in a different way.
Okay.
So ask a different question. Is logic necessarily true?
So you keep asking questions, and all of your questions betray a confusion about the subjects. Logic isn't something that is true. Logic is the method. Logic is the method that we use to analyze things. It may or may not produce truth, contingent on whether or not we have access to truth. So I thought you were calling in to prove that a God exists. And your first two attempts do not include the word God or the word exist. You can't get to the conclusion God exists unless one of those is in the first premise. So your question about logic is also irrelevant.
In fact, Stepan, I'm going to try and help you out here because I see the thing that you are tempted to do, and it's very useful in churches. It's not useful in actual interactions with real atheists. Why don't you try to present your proof of God without asking a question?
Okay, without asking a question, so I'll start then.
Yeah, that's how proofs work.
So logic is necessarily true. Since logic is necessarily true. Oh, wait. No, let me reiterate. So I'm going to start with math is infinitely complex. Logic gave birth to math. Logic cannot be finite because it gave birth to something that's infinitely complex. So logic is also infinitely complex. If logic is infinitely and then another premise is logic is necessarily true. And since logic is necessarily true and it's infinitely complex, it couldn't have come to be randomly, like through evolution. So there must be a creator called God.
Okay, this is probably going to be... No, that argument makes no sense.
Correct.
It has a complete misunderstanding of virtually every term that you used.
Yes.
And it attempts to use infinity as a quantity, which is yet another problem. I
called evolution random and credited evolution for abiogenesis.
Yeah, I did my best to follow along, but there's absolutely nothing there that makes sense that I could say leads to anything even in the ballpark of a God exists.
Stepan, did evolution produce abiogenesis? Is abiogenesis a product of evolution?
Sorry, can you tell me what abiogenesis is?
The origin of life, which was what you said was from evolution.
So my saying that abiogenesis came to be randomly.
I'm asking you, the question I had is read to me again the premise you had that included the word evolution in it. Let me make sure I've got it right.
So evolution couldn't have come to... Okay, so logic couldn't have come from evolution because it's infinitely complex.
No, logic doesn't come from evolution because logic is a concept and evolution is a physical process having to do with matter.
I think you left something out too from when you read it the first time.
Did I?
Yes, because you didn't even use the word random in that. And there was something about, I thought the origin of life, but maybe I intuited that.
Maybe I said logic couldn't have come to be randomly through evolution.
Okay, fine.
Evolution is the process by which living things change. Evolution has nothing at all to do with logic or math, but also the fact that the foundations, logic, something like set theory or identity, lead to math isn't like logic birthing math or math being contingent. Mathematics are developed languages, just like the language of logic is developed, but the truth of the concepts that sit at the foundations there are discoveries. This is why, is it an invention? Is it a discovery? Well, how we use it and the language we use to work with it, that is the invention. the foundational truths of identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, that necessarily, those are discoveries. But in neither case are they evolved things.
But I'm tempted to ask then again. Okay, I'm not tempted to ask a question, which is, does rock have logic? And would that be no, right? Does a rock
Does
have
a rock
logic?
have logic? I don't know what it means to have logic. That doesn't make sense.
Is it capable of rational thought?
I have no reason to think that a rock is capable of rational thought.
Mm-hmm. And
I'll even go so far as to say, I'll even go so far as to say right now that I am currently convinced that rocks are not capable of rational thought. How is that relevant to whether or not there's a God?
So basically, I'm saying, how could evolution come to be if it had to come to be from non-rational things?
Okay. So I asked about this because I wanted to know why it was relevant that a rock doesn't think. How is that relevant?
Okay, so I'm trying to say, since the rock doesn't think, right, and humans can think.
Yes, because
so
they're different.
So where in the history of the world, when did that like change? How could it have possibly changed from being non-rational to rational?
When brains, when neural networks began to form that allowed more advanced processing of information.
Okay, so then wouldn't that make logic subjective?
So, Stepan, are you just randomly picking words out of the air and throwing them out there? Because whether or not logic is subjective, it's like we're not even speaking the same language. I'm answering your questions. You are continually demonstrating that you don't understand the subjects. And then when we get to a point, you're like, oh, and then you say something. Matter of fact, what you just said was so weird, I can't even remember it.
Whether logic, he asked if that makes logic subjective.
Yeah, if that makes logic subjective. Whether or not something is subjective or not, how is that relevant? You keep coming up with irrelevant things.
Yeah.
What is it you'd really like to say? You're convinced that there is a God. Why? Why are you convinced there's a God?
Okay, I guess I'm making a mistake here, assuming that logic should always be true. By logic, I mean logical reasoning.
So we already know that there's flawed reasoning. What you're talking about isn't logic. For example, there are in propositional logic, there are syllogisms and syllogistic forms. And we, thanks to Aristotle and his band of merry logicians, we've been able to go through every possible argument structure. They all have been labeled, categorized, and sorted into different groups. And there are some logical arguments, which we consider valid in structure, where if the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. And there are others where if the premises are true, the conclusion may or may not be true. And so the ones where it may or may not be true, we call those invalid forms. And the arguments where there's a valid structure are valid forms. Once you get a valid form, that means you can stick true premises in, and the conclusion must be true. If you reject the conclusion while accepting the premises, you are being colloquially illogical, unreasonable, irrational, etc. But logic isn't true, and that syllogism isn't true. The syllogistic form doesn't care about the content. You could say premise one is the sky is blue. And depending on how you define those words and those terms, we might both agree the sky is blue. And then you go to the next premise, dogs are blue. And we might agree dogs are blue. And then we say, therefore, the sky is a dog. Now, we already know that syllogistic structure is invalid. There's no reason to think the conclusion is true, whether the premises are true or not. So I'd highly recommend that you spend some time going out and studying the basics of syllogisms to find out what you're talking about. Because when you just say logic has to be true all the time, and I don't see how that's possible without a God, all you're doing is saying, I don't know what logic is, I don't understand this subject, and therefore I'm going to throw up my hands and say it must be a God.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I'll go do more research on that.
I have a question that hopefully, I don't know if it'll be quick or not, but so you've come to the conclusion that you do believe there is a God based on whatever, all the stuff we've just talked about and pointed out the flaws in. But beyond that, let's just say you came up with something and did get to a deistic proposition that there has to be some God. You did tell us at the beginning that you are most compatible with Christianity. How do you get from that establishment of, I think that there is a God, and then I think that that God is the Christian God?
So if there is a God, it would. So what I want to do is basically prove that God exists and he's logical, because logic would be necessarily true, and it would make sense, since God would be logical. Then it would make sense that he would have showed us or provided some kind of information about him. And
Why? Wait. Why?
Okay.
Thinking about the vastness of the universe, I assume you're not a young Earth creationist. You don't think that the universe is small and that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. So thinking about the vastness of the universe and the absolute potential of the universe with how much energy is present in the universe and everything, why is it more reasonable to believe that a God who can create a universe would in any way communicate with only one species of living beings, but apparently not dogs, not cats, not whales, not anything else, and potentially not any other alien species, regardless of their relevant intelligence? Why is it more reasonable to believe in a God that would give one species some information about his existence than to believe in, say, a God who created the universe kind of as a project to see if he could, as he was building with Legos, but actually has no regard for any of the things within it?
Okay, I guess when you ask that, I see kind of my flaws, but the way I would say is that only, so far that we know of, only humans are able of logical thought that brings awareness.
How do you know that only humans are capable of, do you mean on Earth only humans are capable of logical thought?
No, so far that we know of. That's
Okay.
what I would say.
So you're talking about in the almost the number 0, in every conceivable way rounds to 0% of the universe that we've observed. We've only found humans capable of doing this task, even though those humans are actually also creating machines capable of doing those tasks, but whatever. Only humans capable of doing those tasks. As far as we know, also alive today, because we don't even know that there weren't species before us that couldn't have done something like that. It's very unlikely they developed the level of civilization we did, if they did exist. But again, even if that was true, why would it necessitate a God like the God I presented you if evolution is capable of creating logically considerate humans? Why does that necessitate a God also? Why does that necessitate also a God who is personal, like the Christian God, as opposed to a totally impersonal God?
I guess it doesn't.
Correct. And this is why so this was when I had that low blood sugar that one day. I flipped out, and Matt had to calm me down and gave me a talking to after the show. He was very nice. It wasn't a real talking to, but he was like, "Hey man, are you better?" I was getting so frustrated that we had like 4 Christian callers that day that we never got past deism on. That was what I lost my shit over, where it's literally like, how, even if we gave you this, how do you get from there to there? And Stepan, as you've just addressed, you can't. So please, Matt gave you some things to consider. I've given you some things to consider now. Please go to those considerings and call us back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Stepan.
Sweet. Thanks.
It's funny because it is still a thing that bugs me, but that day was the day where I threw a little bit of a fit. I needed some crackers. I'm not kidding, because I haven't had a significant meal today, but I was doing the show. I have 2 packages of peanut butter crackers if I feel like I'm getting moody again.
I don't currently have a snack up here, but I've got a snack in the other room that can go get me a snack.
That's a super snack.
It's genuinely difficult because you try. Trust me. I don't mind being pedantic when I think it's called for, and I don't mind being, pointing out the ridiculousness of things on occasion. I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years on these shows, or almost. Oh, actually, this week marks, I think, exactly 20 years. March 13th of 2004. Or no, that was probably 2005. And so it would have been in December 2000. So there's 19 years. But in any case, the point I was getting to is that you could, as you were pointing out, concede all these things about a deistic kind of God, and it wouldn't get you anywhere near Christianity or Islam or Scientology or whatever they're going to advocate for. But deism, and I know there's a call, so I'm going to avoid getting into it, is also problematic. But at the end of the day, it would be nice to get people to defend what it is they actually believe. But when you start hearing things like, is math invented or discovered? And as it turns out, that's completely irrelevant to the discussion. And then is logic true? Well, no. Statements that have accessible truth values may be considered true. This gets into philosophical things about what access to truth we have, and how do you beat hard solipsism? And so at the end of the day, what we're really saying about logic is that we know, as I was pointing out, which syllogistic forms will produce truth from truth. And more importantly, it's not that this form produces truth. It's about your rationality. And if you accept the premises of a logically valid argument and reject the conclusion, you are irrational, just definitionally irrational on that particular issue. And so the world is complicated and there's a bunch of stuff to know. And so when somebody calls in and is saying, hey, is logic true? There's a heavy sigh and everything else, because okay, let me try and figure out what this person understands and what they've been led to misunderstand in order to get down this particular path. And there are people like, oh, no, why can't you just answer the question? Why can't you just answer? Because it's not, it's not. If I ask, do you have a mechanism to X? That's a question where you get, there's a yes or no. You either have a mechanism or you don't. If you say, is logic true or not? You are asking a question that does not make sense. It's
right.
Like, I can't even come up with an example. It's so absurd.
I think in listening to you talk about it and knowing it's come up before, I think from now on, if I get that question, my response is going to be, please define the logic hypothesis, because there isn't really one. And that's where I think it will become a little bit, maybe that a person would go, right, okay, I now see the flaw in what I am suggesting, because there isn't a hypothesis of logic.
Is a calculator true?
Right. Right.
I mean, is my screwdriver true?
Okay.
You got to be careful.
True. Yeah. Okay. You already know.
You and I we're both woodworkers, so we're getting ready to go down the same path on true, but
a screwdriver can be true.
It's just too much fun. You tie it on a string and hang it from the ceiling. You get it true.
Did you get it true? I mean, yeah, or just do this, and if you see no bend, that'd be a pretty true screwdriver. I think actually, in the spirit of that call or that talk, I think it'll be really fast. But I want to hear what in the world these words mean to this caller. Let me just fix the. I thought I had the name tag ready, but I don't. So Nate in California, it's an interesting proposition, and I'm more interested in a call about deism than I've ever been, because you said that it's reasonable to be an atheist, but it wouldn't be reasonable to be an atheist. So my first question to you is, what do you believe what working definition of atheist are you engaging in?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. So your question was what definition of atheism I subscribe to?
Yeah. So when you say it's reasonable to be an atheist, give me the definition of atheist in that sentence.
Yeah. So absolutely. So because a theist God provides you with the opportunity to assess whether or not it or he or she, whatever, exists, because it intervenes, and there hasn't been any empirical evidence, so to speak, so far that we know of, it is reasonable not to believe in it.
Nate, forgive me. I think I see what you think you're answering. I don't think you're far off. All I want is so here's the definition. If someone said, what's your definition of atheism? I would say it is atheism is a lack of a belief in any God.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so you would also go with the definition, a lack of a belief in any God, correct?
A lack of a belief in any
God.
God, yes.
Is atheism.
That's
okay.
A theist God, right? Because the word theism is atheism, yeah.
Sure. So I just want to show you why your proposition as is currently worded does not work. Because deism is a proposition of some type of God. So for you to say it's reasonable to have a lack of a belief in any God, just replacing the word atheism with the definition we've arrived at, if any God is true, if that truly is the definition, then all deistic gods would be in that category of any God. So how could it be unreasonable to be an atheist, but reasonable to be an atheist when atheism includes a lack of belief in deistic gods? Now I give it back to you just because that was the conflict I see. So go ahead, give your proposition and explain it all.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you. So my misunderstanding perhaps was that atheism refers only to a theist God. But sorry, let me put on my earphones because the dog is barking in the background. This will cancel that.
Yeah, if we can do that promptly, please.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
I sure do. So
yeah, sorry.
You were saying that your understanding was that atheism only refers to theistic gods. And so the counterpoint to that would be, I don't personally say deism isn't a theistic proposition. If a person says they're a deist, they are to me a theist. Matt, do you differ in that regard? Is deism a type of theism?
So there's debate on whether or not deism counts as a subset of theism. I think it does, but in any case, deism. So, my apologies, Nate. I was listening to this, but if you're going to say a theistic God intervenes in some potentially detectable way, and the fact that we haven't detected it gives us reason to think that it doesn't exist, that's fine, but it's not enough to conclude that it doesn't exist. But atheism isn't the conclusion that God doesn't exist. It is the position of not believing that a God exists. And as an atheist, I not only not believe in theistic gods, I especially don't believe in deistic gods, because deistic gods, by definition, cannot have evidentiary warrant. A deistic God is a God that does not interact with reality in any detectable way. And to believe in a deistic God would be to be claiming to detect the undetectable or to believe the undetectable. And I find that absolutely ridiculous. It's like saying there's something that you can't detect at all, but I believe it's there. Why?
Yeah, so I'm 100% with you, Matt, in that. Okay. And I think we are reading my question a little bit wrong. I've had this exact same discussion with some of your colleagues, right, on another show. I think it was Forrest once, and Jim Barrows the other time, and Jamie.
I don't care.
I mean, another one. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that, and I did not get satisfactory answers, what they told me is 100%. I'm on their side in what they told me, or what you're telling me also, right? Is that this God in some sense doesn't have an interest in me, so why should I have any interest in him at all, right? And I'm all the way there, 100%. I don't believe in a deist God, but here's what I want to validate with you folks, right? Because you're a thinker, I know you're a good philosopher. What I want to find out is, let me coin it differently so I can get an answer that helps me figure this out. Let's say someone puts a gun to my head, right, and says, "Dude, you think you're a rational thinker. I want to know, right, what is a reasonable stand, or the likely or unlikelihood you would take about a deist God?" And at that point, I have no choice but to tell that person a reasonable stand to take would be to say that I'm exactly as sure or unsure of a deist God's existence as I'm unsure of its non-existence, right? So I'm exactly in the middle. I've got to be agnostic.
I don't know why you'd do that.
Purest sense, isn't it?
I don't know why you'd
Sorry, go ahead.
say that you need to be exactly in the middle. The answer is, I don't know, and there doesn't appear to be any way to know. Why are you asking me to defend the position that you already agreed with, that I just explained, which is there is no good reason to believe that a deistic God exists. And by definition, there cannot be a good reason to believe that a deistic God exists. And so if somebody says, do you believe in a deistic God? The answer is no, I don't. But if somebody says, are you convinced that there is no deistic God? Then the answer is also no.
That is because there is no evidence and there's no hope of getting any evidence for it.
Correct. By definition, there isn't any way to detect it, and there isn't going to be any way to detect it. If you could detect it, it would cease to be a deistic God and then would be theistic.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of slipping up in my head. I'm saying if there isn't any way to detect or make any rational.
Okay.
All right. It looks like we've now got,
because I wasn't seeing an issue.
Back. Yeah, it's everybody in chat is saying that it's buffering, and then on the YouTube studio end, it's saying that we're having
Maybe you're just like Bigfoot. Bigfoot, Mitch Hedberg said Bigfoot's just blurry. It's not the photographer's fault. There's a great big blurry thing running around, and Jimmy's just, choppy.
That could be it.
Anyway, I don't have anything else on this, Nate. My answer is I've given you my answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it, and I'm with you, Matt. I'm just kind of a little confused, and I've been saying that I don't give a shit for a deist God, right? And no sensible person would. I'm just talking about I don't know the technical term for it. Would it be the epistemology of how I'm thinking through this?
Honestly, the thing that it sounded like, and granted, I was trying to do both at the same time, fix the stream and listen to you. It literally just sounds like you're making the exact same propositional flaw that people do for atheism. It sounds like you're saying, gun to my head, I would have to say I was quote unquote agnostic about whether or not, but it's still the lack of belief. If you don't believe the God exists, if you don't possess the act of believing in the deistic God, then if atheism and adeism are the same thing except for the slight clarification, then you are an adeist. If you're asking for a special definition, then you wouldn't be.
Agnostic isn't some magical middle position between belief and disbelief. It's just not true. Gnosticism is a subset of theism, just like knowledge is a subset of belief. Now, you might say, you know what? I don't know whether or not there's a God, but I have some reasons that make me lean one way or the other, which is why I'm like, why on earth would you ever say I'm exactly 50-50? It could be, it's not like we get to 50%, 51% convinced and all of a sudden now we know. No, you might believe. You might be convinced that even though you can't prove it, the notion that a God created everything, you might think that's more reasonable than that one didn't. but you don't have any evidential warrant for belief, and you don't have knowledge.
All right, Nate. I think you got a lot to think about.
I do, and then I'm going to think about this. And a quick one, right? If that's okay with you guys.
Very fast. Yeah, we want to move on here.
Sure. So I did also respond to Matt's question on a person beating another person on Facebook, and I think Matt referred to that in a couple of conversations ago. And my answer there was that I'll probably call the police. I wouldn't intervene myself, and that's because I don't want to be bodily harmed, right, in that situation.
Sure, but that is intervening.
And I simply try and do the right thing in either case, whether it's sorry, Jamie?
Nate, in any meaningful way, that is intervening. It seems to me, but yeah, good enough. All right, thank you, Nate.
All right, bro.
Have a good one.
Bye. Cheers.
And I'm not actually commenting. I mean, I guess I did. I was going to say I'm not really commenting on what my take is on that question that I asked, but I did already comment on it today.
Yep. And we just have a ton of calls.
Wow.
Lined up here, so we'll keep going. By the way, tonight at 6 p.m. Central Time, I will be doing a Zoom with our patrons. So you can go to patreon.com/calltheline. It's me today. We'll figure out, since Matt and I are the birthday boys of the month, we'll figure out who should, when to get Matt up as well this month. And then don't forget, you can also go to linemerch.com and buy one of these two designs on, there's 5 different options. By the way, some of the options, I know a few people got crop tops and were like, they put in the comment, they're like, I love this crop top. I only wish it came in white. And I'm like, it does. You just have to hit the white button. So there are, make sure when you're within the products that you check the different color options, because there are options as well.
Basically, you're telling people to go over to our merchandise thing and hit the white button.
That's right. I think I already started the...
You should be canceled.
This is my way of balancing it out, because I started the show by annoying the whites, and now I'm giving them a little special love. Hit the white button. I actually even have.
If you want to ride,
these are different things.
Ride the white button.
Are available, and then there's also hoodies that are off of the thing, but it's getting warmer, so we didn't put those at the very top. All right. I'm ready for some theists. Let's talk to Patrick in Pennsylvania, a theist who is calling, I assume, with the defense of why it is logical to believe in God, or reasonable, rather.
Hello?
Hi, Patrick.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call. My idea, really, I'm really curious to hear, Matt, what you have to say about it, or even if you've heard it before. I wouldn't even be surprised if you've heard it before. It's kind of an existentialist position. My thinking is that, humans don't just pop into being. And I'm not, this is an anti-evolution. I believe in evolution.
They don't?
But when we consciously,
Talking to YouTube, and then all the people saying frozen and buffering. So hopefully we're back. Hopefully that improves it.
Oh, maybe I'm not all the way caught up live.
Ah, that might be it. All right. I hope we're better. Patrick, go ahead.
Right.
Resume.
So Patrick, the question was, do humans always do things that are rational?
Well, my fear is actually that's the heart of the issue.
Why can't you answer the question that I sat here and I listened to you.
No, yes,
we don't. Very politely. Why are you still trying to talk over me? I'm trying to address something. I sat here and I listened to you. I very politely asked a question which you didn't answer.
No.
So
the answer is no.
Cool. So if humans don't always do things that are rational, why is it a problem that you can't find a rational reason to procreate?
Because then that means existence is based on an irrational motive.
Is love rational?
That's not the question. It's about creation.
I'm sorry, but I asked you a question. Are you going to answer it, or are you going to dodge it?
I don't know what you're trying to prove. My question
I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm trying to ask you a fucking question to see if you'll answer the fucking question. Will you?
I don't think it's really respectful to start cursing at me.
Okay, goodbye,
I don't
jackass.
know what.
How's that for some Zen? Choke on that one. A complete Zen shutdown of your dishonest interactions. So this is where we get down the road into things about antinatalism and things like that. Patrick's issue was that he can't come up with a rational reason to procreate. Okay, so what? Well, what's the conclusion? According to Patrick, that means that existence isn't based on rationality. So what? The very notion that creatures act in accordance with their desires, and one of those desires may be evolutionarily programmed, or it may just be self-beneficial to procreate and reproduce. The fact that he just wanted, well, I don't understand what question you're trying to, I literally asked you the question. What about the question did you fail to understand, Patrick? It sounds to me like I've detected yet another dishonest interlocutor who is being obtuse, who is afraid to answer the very questions that might expose the logical fallacies in the objections they're trying to launch. Is it rational to procreate? On some occasions, in some instances, I would say it's absolutely the most rational decision. If I have the funds to raise a family, and I would benefit both joy in my life from having children and benefit by having someone to potentially take over after me, to carry on a legacy, to take care of me when I'm old. There are plenty of rational reasons that one might come up with to reproduce, but why would it ever be the case that because I want to is insufficient? Now, Patrick's line, which, let's be honest, Patrick, I can do both your stuff and my stuff in full Zen mode without you even here, which is why I already hung up on you. You don't need to be here for this. Patrick's thing is, yes, but you're bringing someone into the world who you know is going to experience suffering, and you can't guarantee that they're going to experience joy. And you're correct. But the odds are really good that they will, in fact, experience joy and happiness. The odds are really good that they will also experience suffering. If the overwhelming majority of people's lives was consumed by suffering, then the antinatalist might almost have a case. Why are you bringing, if we get to the point where climate change is just going to take out the planet and everyone born is just going to burn to death with no joy or anything else, at that point, it might in fact not only be irrational, but immoral to bring kids into the world. However, Patrick's objection was that it wasn't rational. Well, so what, Patrick? You're not rational. You're not even close to rational. You weren't rational enough to even answer the questions I was asking that were going to expose that. Who cares whether or not it's rational? The notion that existence, procreation, needs to be a rational decision is something that you've made up in your head, or that somebody else has made up and stuck in your head, and you can't defend. I've never held that a rationality was a requirement for procreation. I don't even know anybody who says that rationality is a requirement for procreation, or that the fact that some people just reproduce willy-nilly, went out to a party, hooked up, boom, pregnant. That wasn't rational. All you're thinking about is getting your rocks off. The fact that happens doesn't mean that existence is mired in irrationality. But if existence were mired in rationality, Patrick, would need to be the one showing why that's not the case. Not that you just can't believe it's the case.
Also strange that this was all the foundation of what was ultimately going to be his defense of a God existing. So I can only presume that he thought he was going to get consensus from us that in a secular world, there would be no good reason to reproduce. But, in a religious world, God commanded, go forth and multiply.
And that's rational, because now the rationality is it rational to reproduce, Jimmy, if somebody's got a gun to your head saying reproduce or I will blow your brains out? I would say that's rational. And so that's true because there's a God up there that says, you will therefore go ye unto the world and reproduce. Ha ha ha. And then it's rational, but that doesn't make it moral. So now we've moved from whether or not it's rational to whether or not it's moral.
Yeah. So it is very strange. I will tell people who are watching now, it looks like our stream is currently solid. I'm not getting errors. I'm going to actually hit record and make sure that the remainder of the stream is recording, because oddly, whatever interactions are happening, which this happened on my channel the other day, though worse, on my 4K stream, but there's no bottlenecks in my PC at the moment, so I don't know why it would be happening here. Anyway, we're going to record it because it seems to not be interfering with our ability to take the calls. So worst case scenario, if I have to, I will post the recorded segment that has the remaining calls. But otherwise, yeah, we are going, we are up, and hopefully things are fine from here forward. It's strange because the call system wasn't interfered with. My connection to you wasn't interfered with, which makes me think there's something going on the YouTube end. But I can't be positive what was causing it. But I guess I'll try and see if there's an update to .NET framework that I need to do or something. I don't know. Let's continue on. All of these calls, even the non-theist ones, look like they're going to be pretty juicy. So, let's hang on one second. It is storming over here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I haven't
really
looked out
storming
my window.
over here. I'm going to get you set up on with Tom, and I'm going to go unplug televisions because I just realized it's really bad over here. I'm going to unplug things I don't want to get hit by lightning, except for this computer. I will return as you and Tommy talk. Tommy, you are on the line. Tommy, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt, but for a moment, you will have just Matt. Enjoy.
Hey, Tommy, how are you?
Good.
So it says here
can
that
you hear me?
you're saying because our understanding is limited, we're not able to fully understand God.
That's right.
Given that our understanding is limited, how do you know that there is a God at all? And what do you understand about God?
Yes. So imagine a human being trying to speak to an ant. It would be an impossible thing to do. The best thing we can do is perhaps try to understand their behavior and speak to them at their,
Excuse me, Tommy. In your analogy, so a human being can't speak to an ant. In that analogy, are we the humans, or are we humans, or are the ants humans, and we're God?
So in the analogy, the God would be the human, and we would be the
Okay.
ant.
So in the analogy, did the human create the ant?
No.
No. And so in the analogy, does the human have the ability to communicate with the ant?
But it is possible for humans to create.
That's a question.
Of, life
That's a
in the
question.
future, Yeah, it's not an impossibility.
What do you mean? Wow. Okay. So is God capable of communicating with humans?
Yes, so that's what I'm.
So your
trying to say.
analogy
So
is
because
broken. Find another one.
No, it's not. So when a fast.
No, it is. Your analogy is broken. You're going to use the complexity of humans trying to communicate with ants when humans can't communicate with ants. That's not just a limit of the ants' understanding. That's a limit of the ability of the humans to communicate. But you believe in a God, I presume, that is unlimited, that is maximally powerful and can communicate with us, correct?
Yes. So
if God can communicate, hang on, Tommy, if God can communicate with us, why doesn't he?
So God cannot communicate with us because we may not handle all the things that he knows. So he has to.
How do you know that? No, hang on. Tommy, stop talking. When you say that God can't talk to us because we can't handle all the things he knows, I didn't say anything at all about all the things he knows. It's not required for us to understand everything that God knows. The question is, can God communicate with us in a way that we can understand? Yes or no?
Yes, he can.
Then why doesn't he?
Then
why doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to tell you, maybe surmise. So he would have to come down to a human level, use a human language, use a human
Tommy?
story.
All right, I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you so that I can maintain my zen, because of all the people, you're the ones most likely going to irritate the shit out of me. I didn't ask you how God needed to do it. I asked why he doesn't. You say that God's capable of talking to us, and I said, why doesn't he? That's the answer I want.
God can communicate to us. He does communicate to us.
Prove it. Prove that God communicates with us.
If he wanted to. I mean, my position is...
No, Tommy, you don't get to do that. I'm going to mute you again, and I'm going to explain this again. You said God does communicate with us, and I asked you to prove it, and the next words out of your mouth were, if he wants to. So when you realized that you didn't have a way to prove the thing that you said, you decided to add a little caveat there. I didn't ask whether or not God wanted to. I asked whether or not God could. And then when you said he could, I asked why he doesn't, and you said that he does. So give an example of how God does communicate with us and how you know that it's God communicating with us. That's what I want.
Yes. So in the context of religion, so for example, by inspiring religious books, teaching us different moral codes through the different stories, in using examples that humans can understand. Yes.
Tommy?
Yes.
I need you to prove that God inspired a religious book.
I can't prove that. What I'm saying is...
Cool. Then stop claiming it. I guarantee you, Tommy, I'm never, ever going to allow you to make unsupported claims here. So when you say God does communicate with us, and I ask for an example, your example was he inspired holy books. And when I say prove he inspired holy books, you admit you can't. So now we've eliminated your prime example. Do you have some other example of God actually communicating with us? Or are you just pulling this out of your butt?
So imagine like you have, imagine we have a two-dimensional being.
I don't need to imagine. You know what I'd like to imagine, Tommy? I'd like to imagine that you're actually answering the questions that I'm asked. There are people who are saying they can't hear the call. I'm hoping that's a limitation. But I'm actually imagining that you're going to answer the question that I asked, which is, can you give me an example of God talking to us?
I can't give you an example of that.
Great. So if you have no example that you can present that God talks to us, then you can't demonstrate your claim that God talks to us. So now we're stuck.
Yeah, well, for example, if there is, I've never seen an electron, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right?
So, Tommy, are you just a prank caller right now? Because, no offense, but
No.
We've seen electrons. We've seen electrons, and even before we saw them, we had evidence and could present evidence of the existence of electrons. So when I just asked you to demonstrate your claim that God talks to us and you couldn't, you immediately went to, I haven't seen an electron, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Did I say that God doesn't exist?
Electrons.
No, I didn't. No, Tommy, I didn't. And I definitely didn't say that God doesn't exist because you couldn't prove it. I didn't say that either. So your complete response is an absolute non sequitur that has nothing to do with the discussion. Whether or not you have good reason to believe in electrons is completely irrelevant to whether or not you have good reason to believe in God. Do you have good reason to believe in a God? Yes or no?
Yes, I do. I believe.
What is the good reason? What is the good reason? I'm going to give you a chance. What is the good reason to believe in God? Go.
Yeah, my good reason to believe in God is that since there are things that human beings will not be able to understand, God exists. So
No, Tommy. No, Tommy. The sentence that you just uttered is you said, it seems that there are things that humans would not be able to understand without God, right?
mhm.
What would humans not be able to understand without God? And how do you know we wouldn't be able to understand it without God? Last chance.
Yeah, yeah. So for example, we're not built, we're not made to understand the fourth spatial dimension, the fifth spatial dimension. You know how they move. I can't even imagine it.
Okay.
You know.
Goodbye, Tommy.
So.
Nope. Goodbye.
That
The best way for me to keep my Zen is to spend zero time with someone who does not have an argument or evidence for their position and decides to say that the best evidence for God is that there are things we wouldn't understand without God, things like higher dimensions. Because, Tommy, you don't understand higher dimensions. You don't even understand the basic dimensions that we're walking up and down and moving around in. You don't understand the argument. You don't understand the nature of evidence. There's absolutely nothing about that conversation that got anywhere near demonstrating that a God exists. And all we did was have you on multiple occasions admit that you couldn't do the very thing that you said you could do or wanted to assert was true. Thank you for your honesty, but I don't have any more time for multidimensional assertions about how we wouldn't understand it without God. Hey, Jimmy, welcome back.
Hey, I'm pulling up the show because I'm probably going to be up and down a little bit more. We're having a flooding issue in our neighborhood right now, and that's not dope. And as you already know, I have Matt is probably one of 3 people who knows the amount of weather anxiety I get.
Yes.
Yeah. In fairness, the time when it was really bad, a tornado did hit my neighborhood and possibly my house. So
that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know if it's phobia or like fuck, this shit happens to me. Anyway, I may be running back and forth a little bit just to monitor that and make sure I don't need to dig a trench or something.
Sure.
But
well, I've got Colin Studio up, so I can.
Cool. As I say,
whatever.
If you pick your next one, I'm going to monitor also because I can send shortcuts from my phone.
Sweet. So Josh is calling back after speaking the other day about Jesus, the Ancient Psychologist, Part 2. Hey, Josh, why on earth do you think I want Jesus, the Ancient Psychologist, Part 2?
Well, because it has a fundamental issue that I think affects all evidentiary claims.
I don't think it does. We've already established that your entire take on this is your personal esoteric understanding of the Bible. And you have no way of demonstrating that yours is correct over all of the other esoteric understandings of the Bible. So why should any of us care what Josh's view is?
Because a lot of people might be based on a false premise, or they might be operating on a false premise. And the false premise is that we can actually see outside of ourselves, which we can't.
Okay, goodbye. Josh is a time waster, as we demonstrated in the last show. The false premise is that we can't see outside of ourselves. Cool. I think that this is an absolutely, you're so predictable and pedestrian, Josh. You're the guy who took the first level philosophy course and then watched some YouTube videos on some interesting things. You're the guy who watched and liked all of the Matrix movies. What Josh is actually talking about, despite the fact that I didn't let him get to it, is that, you are not, in fact, engaging with an external world. Your senses, no matter what they are receiving, are creating a construct in your head, a model of reality. And you have no way of demonstrating that the model of reality that you have actually lines up with a reality here. Josh is trying to put a spin on the problem of hard solipsism, which is completely irrelevant to Jesus the Psychologist, Part 2. Josh, don't call me back. You have nothing useful or entertaining or substantive, and I don't care about your esoteric personal takes on the Bible or your thoughts on philosophical issues. Your thoughts on the philosophical issues have nothing to do with Jesus, the psychologist, and the fact that you tried to conflate those two is embarrassingly stupid.
I already don't like bong rip deism. Bong rip Christianity would have to be my least favorite of the three.
Yeah.
Can't do it. All right. Things look like they're okay.
I always get the impression that Josh is just trolling, and I can't prove it, but it doesn't matter because Josh is boring and pedestrian. So
it's one of those things where when you do this long enough, you have an instinct. And there have been times where people have told me I was wrong, and then the next time the caller called in, it proved I was right. Then there's probably been times I actually was wrong and never found out, but you get a bit of an instinct for them.
I've been taking calls live on these shows for 19 years. There's very few things I haven't heard, and you can try and disguise them all you want, Josh, but you might fool yourself. You might fool somebody who doesn't know anything, but you're not fooling me. All right. After an hour on hold, is it Maki in Idaho? No, in
it
USA.
Is pronounced Mackie.
Mackie in USA. I'm sorry, I got you confused with somebody else. Thanks for waiting.
It's all right.
Go ahead, Mackie.
I think that it's reasonable within human nature to want to believe in other things, gods and stuff. As I've said.
Hang on, because the notes just say, think it's reasonable to believe. Are you here to defend the belief is reasonable or a wanting to believe is reasonable?
Yep.
It's hard to say.
Well, you have to
Oh,
pick.
come on. How can it be?
With one?
I know, I have to pick.
Whatever it is you're advocating for, you either believe it or you want to believe it. And you're telling me you don't know which one it is?
I think.
I don't believe that.
Well, my description says I'm agnostic, so you can probably guess what I believe. That I believe that there's no way to tell if there's a God or not.
Sure.
And I believe that atheism is
But that's not what the call was about.
The universe around us at face value.
No, atheism does no such thing. That you could maybe say materialists or naturalists have some element of that.
Okay.
Most people who call themselves agnostics are in fact atheists, and in fact, you haven't yet presented a non. You said you called yourself an agnostic. You haven't. What about your beliefs would be incompatible with atheism?
I don't believe that they're not. I don't believe that they're not compatible. I believe that they're compatible.
Okay.
And that I am an atheist.
Great. Okay. So you're an agnostic atheist. Now I just need the answer to the question before. Are you here to defend that it is reasonable to believe in otherworldly things, or are you here to defend that it is reasonable to want there to be otherworldly things?
I think it's reasonable to believe that there are other things in this universe,
like
possibly gods.
Like possibly.
They wouldn't be considered a god.
Okay.
So
your proposition now, just to make it simpler, because it seems like you're still forming it, so I'm going to see if I can help you here, Mackie.
I space out a lot, so I forget.
I get it. All right. So your proposition, we're going to now make the new proposition based on everything you just said. I, Mackie, believe it is reasonable to believe in a God. That is the totality of the things you've just shared. Now, with that proposition, it is reasonable to believe in a God. Please defend that it is reasonable.
Well, there's nothing to say that there isn't a God. But of course, as you've done the show, there's no way to prove
there's nothing to say there isn't a hand of Midas. And yet it's not reasonable to believe there is a hand of Midas. So I'm not asking about why we're asking, why is it reasonable? What makes a belief in God reasonable?
I believe it's reasonable because one, we don't know quite technically how the universe was created. Sure, it could be random.
Okay, so wait. Let's engage with that. Does that mean every proposition, because we do not know how the universe began, is every proposition that we give reasonable on that basis?
I'm sorry, that got me caught up just a little bit in my brain. Can you slow that down?
You said it's reasonable to believe in God because we don't know what started the universe. So if that is true, is everything reasonable to believe in that could have started the universe? Could I give every proposition? So for example, if I say to you, I tomorrow am going to go back in time after eating a concoction of nachos and fairy shits, and I'm going to fart out the universe.
Reasonable.
Why is that not reasonable? If believing God is reasonable because we don't know what began the universe, why is the belief that I'm a time travel universe farter not reasonable?
It's not within human ability.
I never said I was human. You don't know that I'm human.
And
good point.
It's not within the human abilities that you know about.
Yeah, fair enough.
True.
See, the issue here is that you're claiming it's reasonable to believe something, and then when we pull up examples of things that you don't find reasonable to believe, all of a sudden there's exemptions and excuses. So, what is your criteria for what makes something reasonable to believe?
Something is reasonable because there's proof behind it. So like,
cool.
I have certain abilities and I can like do them, and I can prove that I can do them, and I can prove that there's stuff that I can't do because I just maybe physically can't or mentally can't. And we have evidence behind so much stuff, and then there's parts of reality or the universe where we don't have evidence, and so we have to discover, like we didn't discover math.
Okay, let's pause because we're getting away. We're getting away from it. Matt, I have a question for you. Is there anything which you believe is reasonable to believe that you don't believe in? Anything besides God?
No. Not
Mackie,
that I'm aware of.
No, it was for you. It was for you. And the reason I was asking you is I was wondering if I'm missing something here. Because Mackie, I don't know how a person, you are currently defending the proposition that it is reasonable to believe in God. And then you gave the definition of that something is reasonable because it has proof behind it. And as I was thinking about it,
I think I got, I don't know what happened, but I think it's reasonable to believe in God, but not in any human God, because humans are infallible and we often abuse power.
Fine. Again,
humans are infallible? Well, that disproves that in an amusing way.
I think Mackie was using it wrong. Hang on, Mackie. It's fine.
Yeah,
it was a slip of the tongue. I get it. Wait, before you proceed.
Vocabulary was not my best.
Before you proceed, the point I was making is, if I found anything reasonable to believe, I would believe it. If Matt, I assume it's the same because Matt doesn't have anything he believes is reasonable to believe that he doesn't believe in. So you are saying there is warrant for belief in God. However, you are still agnostic atheist. That does not make any sense. If you believe that it is a justified, warranted, reasonable belief to believe in God, why would you not be theist?
Because I think that human religions and beliefs are in error.
Okay, so it doesn't have to, I didn't ask you whether or not you believe in any of the theistic propositions you've ever been given. If you think that is, Mackie, here's what I think you mean to be defending and that you are completely gone from, but maybe it's, I don't know if it's pride or whatever, but you're now sitting going, crap, I did say that, so I do have to defend this and defend this. I really think that at the beginning when I asked you for clarification, you said you want to say it's reasonable to believe, but really you mean to defend the want. That you believe it is either want or just that it's very understandable that people would look out at the universe, feel so incredulous that they would go, I'm going to put a God in there because it's comfortable. And that in reality, you are defending that it is reasonable for an uncomfortable person to do things, to come up with explanations, to become more comfortable, regardless of if that is warranted or not. I think that's what you're actually here to defend, and not that a belief in God is reasonable, because I think if you believed a belief in God was reasonable, you would believe in God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My main belief is just that the truth is much more alien, not as in like aliens. I just mean like alien to us.
Maybe it's not.
Mackie, did you just call in because you're one of those people who are like, oh, there's so many things. We don't know everything. There might be possibilities. Because if so, that's beyond boring. Of course, there are plenty of things we don't know, and there are things that we might like to be true, and there might be things that we wish were true, and there are mistakes in our thinking that anyone's going to make, and it doesn't make you stupid or anything else. But you called in to say you think it's reasonable to believe in otherworldly things, and that's what's on there.
I had a whole thing constructed, and then I got on, and I completely lost it, and I have no idea what I was thinking.
What did you have? What did you have constructed? Jimmy took the thing that wasn't constructed. Here, let me demolish the thing that was constructed. Let me deconstruct it.
It was mainly my agnostic beliefs that there's no proof nor disproof. And
is disproof required?
No, I don't think so.
So why would you say there's no proof or disproof if no disproof is required? Only proof is required, right? Do you believe that there's aliens living in my butt? Do you believe that there's aliens living in my butt that make San Pellegrino?
There's microbes that are.
No, if you wouldn't have interrupted, you would have heard the whole thing, which is, do you think there are aliens living in my butt that manufacture San Pellegrino?
I don't know what the last part means.
It's this drink that I'm having right here. It comes in a nice little can. It's an Italian soda. This one's Melograno Arancia. That's wonderful.
So good.
But are you convinced? Are you convinced that there are aliens living in my butt producing this? The answer is no.
Of course not.
Can you prove it? Can you disprove it? No. So the mere fact that something can't be disproven doesn't tell you whether or not it's been proven or whether or not it warrants belief. So when you come in saying you can't prove it or disprove it, you're basically just engaged in some useless sophistry, because that's true for anything that isn't proven. And if something is in fact unfalsifiable, it can never have the sort of evidentiary warrant that we would expect from scientific findings, because that requires falsifiability. They should give me money for advertising their product.
Mackie, I think you have a lot to think about.
Yeah, that, and I'm spacing out, losing my train of thought. No idea.
Sounds like a good time to leave it at that. Thank you, Mackie.
Thank you for your time. I hope I didn't waste your time.
It'll work.
Go enjoy your Sunday.
Clip. It'll be fine. It's not a waste of time. We get paid to be here.
Weirdly, and we can just tell the call screener this, Josh has called back to prove he's not a prank caller.
Wait. Don't. Can I, please? May I? I don't want you to ruin it.
Go for it.
Okay. All right, here we go.
You don't want me to ruin it? Well, fuck you too, buddy.
No, I don't want you to ruin what's going to happen next. Yeah. All right. Okay. Josh, do not talk yet. I'm going to ask you a question. The answer will determine how much longer the call goes. Josh, if a prank caller were to call into our show and be hung up on, would that caller calling back prove that they were not a prank caller?
Not on its own, no.
So why would you calling prove that you're not a prank caller?
Well, because I wanted to cite some texts that are pretty serious texts that I consider to be fairly good evidence for the position that I'm advancing.
Okay. So here's the last question. We don't care. So why should we take the question anyway? Why should we take the call anyway?
Well, the purpose of debate is learning. How about that?
No, it's not. No, it's not. The purpose of education is learning. Debate is conflict that may teach, but it may not teach. I can demonstrate this by the fact that I've done thousands, well, we'll go with hundreds of debates because it's over 1,000, but I don't know, where people didn't learn a thing and other people did learn. But you have nothing to teach me of any substance or use.
Josh, what have you learned from the debates you've had on this channel?
Well, I think that in both cases, when I called, the arguments weren't taken seriously.
Excuse me, Josh. That was not the question. Josh, what question did I just ask you?
What did I learn?
Yes. What did you learn in the debates that you were doing? So if you're talking about learning, I need to call into a debate to learn about what it's like to debate there is not the purpose of a debate by any means. So you're saying education, essentially, that you're going to get some enlightenment by debating. When you have called in,
he doesn't think he's going to learn. He thinks he's going to teach.
I know. That's why I'm asking. What have you learned?
I think I have. For instance, the last one got hung up on a question about the historicity of like the red letter texts, and I think the response frustrated Matt there. And I didn't realize that it would cause such a frustration.
Okay. So once again, you are showing
you're a liar.
That you are lying about what the learning thing is. Let me ask you this, Josh. Did you learn that we sometimes abruptly hang up on people?
Yeah.
You sure did. All right. Next call.
Sweet.
I honestly thought he would. So the reason why I didn't want you to quote unquote ruin it, I thought he was going to say, yes, it is proof. I was surprised he didn't fall for the trap.
I knew he wouldn't say proof. That's why when he answered the question, his answer wasn't yes or no. It was not on its own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm very interested by, this is a call I haven't gotten a call like this, I don't think.
Oh boy.
Angel in Ireland, I'm going to fix your name tag here, but Angel in Ireland, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hello. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just
I'm
have a question.
I'm zen as I can be.
Zend.
Okay, cool.
Hey, happy St. Patrick's Day. That matters in your country, I think, right?
Yeah. I just came back from the parade. It was absolutely amazing.
Oh, that probably was cool. All right. Sorry. Go ahead. Give us your question.
Okay. So growing up, I was very conservative, born and raised in church. Then I went throughout the world, college, met friends, social media, all that, and I became more progressive as I grew up. However, the people around me stayed the exact same because, like I knew, I grew up in a very religious community, and I'm kind of having some inner conflict. So basically, there was a scandal in my church. One of my best friends is gay. Someone found out, and then people were just lost their minds. And they were like, oh, well, you can't be a Christian. Well, you're not a Christian because, you're hanging out with gay people and all that stuff. And also, I remember, my pastor was preaching a lot of, stuff that's, women should stay in the home and all that stuff. And, I'm kind of having this, weird inner conflict.
Sure.
Because it's I want to stay faithful to my faith, but then again, I have my own personal core values. And then I remember people telling me, you're not a real Christian and all that stuff. And I just want your guys' opinion on that, basically.
Well, first of all, my opinion is you should not want to stay faithful to your faith. Clearly, the thing that is tearing you up right now is the fact that your faith is incompatible with your better judgment, that you have some level of, and you can question yourself where it's coming from, but you're wanting to stay rock solid with your faith. The religion that you have, if by faith you're meaning colloquially your religion, is incompatible with your better, what I would call humanistic instincts. As far as they go, people who the concept of no true Christian, it's obviously it's a fallacy. You've probably heard about it millions of times. There are tons and tons of different forms of Christianity. Some of them are left-leaning. Some of them are even leftist, as in socialist versus capitalism. So left-leaning, often people are referring to like Democrats and liberals from the U.S. and certain parties in the U.K. Obviously, you can be a part of some group of people who will say, we are Christians. They'll probably even say we're the right kind of Christians and still be a part of that. But for me, you're calling into an atheist show, talking to two people who have had lots of people have lots of speculations about our sexuality and condemning our sexuality. Lots of people believing we're going to hell for our various sinful ways. And that's not the reason we don't believe, is because we don't want it to be true that it's a sin. We don't believe because there's not a good reason to believe in it. Any people who are telling you that the Bible does speak poorly of gay people is telling you the truth. Anyone who tells you that the Bible does speak poorly of what women's intended role in society is telling you the truth. The reason why you are considered a progressive amongst these people is because you are an exception to Christianity, saying, I'm going to go and still believe these things that I believe are good for humanity, even though the Bible does support some really, really bigoted things. And that's where different levels of apologetics come in. So my advice to you would be, obviously, I care more that you're a good person than an atheist. So if you absolutely have to hold on to it, keep following down those progressive humanistic rabbit holes and stick to your guns. Don't let these horrible people who don't have a good reason for their belief dictate to you what you should believe. But at the same time, I would take it a step further and go, your reasons for not believing they're good are probably my reasons for not believing your version of Christianity is true either. Because it's not just going to be because it's hurtful. There's nothing that says a God and a Christian God can't be mean or hurtful or hate gays or hate anybody. In fact, he seems to hate tons of people in the Bible. So yeah, you're calling an atheist show, not a progressive Christian show. And that's kind of the advice you're going to get.
Okay. And Matt, what do you have to say about that?
I think it's a no true Scotsman fallacy that Christianity is a confusing mess and the Bible is an absolutely vile book backing a religion that is similarly problematic. And so when you find people who are like, oh, you can't be a Christian and left-leaning, they're almost always right, but there might be some exceptions. It's really weird that the guy who said sell all your belongings and give the money to the poor hasn't had too many people selling their belongings and giving the money to the poor. So they're hypocritical, and it's not going to be surprising that they're also hypocritical about who gets to fit in their club, which is why there are over 1,000 denominations that all identify as Christian and disagree on every single point of doctrine. My most Zen-like answer is, not only do I not give a fuck whether or not you can be a Christian and a decent person, I don't care if anybody ever resolves it.
Yeah. If anything, though, it's funny because if I do think you're a decent person and a Christian, I'm going to usually use the word despite.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Angel's a good
if the
person
book says,
despite, yeah.
You know, at no point does the book tell you not to have slaves, and yet it tells you exactly how to own slaves, how to treat them, how you can beat them, how you can trick them into being your slaves forever. And while it may be okay with women having sex with women, and Ruth may have been a lesbian, it's undeniably opposed to men having sex with men. If a man lies with a man as he lies with a woman, they've committed an abomination and they're deserving of death. I mean, there are plenty of things where people can be like, oh, but you got to interpret it in the right way. No, you don't. If the Bible says if two men have sex, they should be put to death, and it says you should be put to death for eating shellfish, and you should be putting death for breaking any of these, or put to death for breaking any of these 613 commandments, if it's constructed a completely immoral control system, okay, the fact that there are some left-leaning, decent Christian people, I'm thrilled. I'll hang out with them, but they better not bring up Jesus. I have someone I knew briefly was the former head of the Organization for Americans United for Church-State Separation, the Reverend Barry Lynn. And I said, I spoke on stage immediately before him. He was the second one up. We were at the Secular Student Alliance convention, and I joked that I was on a mission to get everybody away from Christianity, but that I was going to, from religion, from God beliefs, but I would save Reverend Barry Lynn for last, because I needed an ally for church-state separation within the church. But apart from that, Barry Lynn and I could sit down and agree absolutely on church-state separation and countless other things and have massive interests and be largely aligned. And we could both be cheering on Bernie the other day when he was talking. And at the end of the day, if Barry tries to say that there actually is a God and a Jesus, and I'm going to be subject to judgment, etc., then he needs to prove it. And I'll go at him just as hard as any Christian I've ever debated or any atheist who makes bad arguments. Anyway, that's not have anything to do with your question, but thanks for letting me get the sermon in.
No, it's okay.
Angel,
sorry to interrupt, but can I ask you guys a hypothetical?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say hypothetically, 24 hours, all the religions in the world became extremely left-leaning, right? But like they still kept all their stories, but like no bigotry, etc. But they just kept all their lore. Would you guys still be opposed to religion, and why?
The channel would not go anywhere. We would do the Sunday show next Sunday. We would do it the Sunday after. We would do the Sunday after that. Skeptalk would still go. Every single program on this channel would still go on.
Yeah. And some of them are addressing, I mean, if you say, basically what you're saying is if all religions stopped being problematic, but tried to maintain their religious belief, then I'm still a skeptic. I still care about what's true. Would it be as big a deal? No. If we all got together and decided to build the future world of Star Trek, but hang on to people's cherished religious stories, it would be irritating, but I probably wouldn't spend as much time on it. But as long as people are making claims about what's real and failing to demonstrate them, I'm going to point that out. And I'll be open to discussing it with anybody who thinks it can prove otherwise, because I do this not to prove people wrong, or not merely to prove people wrong, but because if there is a God, I fucking want to know. Why wouldn't you want to know? This has got to be the most important issue possible. Is there an afterlife, and what do I have to do about it? Is there a God that's going to make some sort of judgment about it? There could be no questions about eternity could not possibly be less important, or any more important than they are.
Angela, sorry.
I love the fact that we would all be on the same page on a number of issues, but yeah, it's not going to stop.
Yeah, and Angela, if you try to give that question to somebody in the future, I'd probably avoid left and just maybe the term humanist, because I could conceive of certain left-leaning things that I don't necessarily think are. I'm specifically a small L libertarian socialist, and so there's plenty of left, quote unquote, left-leaning, or and what actually a leftist is. But I will say, I think I can also illustrate this for you easily. Angel, is there a political figure that you've gotten to vote for that you're excited to vote for? Were excited, or currently you would want to vote for?
Not really. I mean,
all right. So I'm going to make one up.
Either.
I'm going to call him.
Okay.
I'm going to make one up. We're going to call him Bernie Flanders, right? And Bernie Flanders is an Irish politician that you have the opportunity to vote for, and you think he's amazing. He has every core belief you have. You line up on everything, the EU positions. This is your guy, and you've never felt more represented. And then you find out that everyone's going to vote for him, and you're so excited because it's all about to change. That celebration, that excitement is still going to be there. Now, imagine if you found out that 90% of the people who are going to vote for Bernie Flanders are going to vote for Bernie because they think he's secretly Tony Stark. that he's a real life Iron Man. That he does this and there's no basis for it, but they all really believe that, and they don't think he's going to prove it. They don't think he's going to show up ever as Iron Man, but he's still that's their entire. And you go and you ask them, but do you agree with his policies? Nah, policies, whatever. I don't care. It's because he's Iron Man. That's what it's like to be an atheist amongst progressive Christians who hold your same values, where you're like, man, I'm really glad we're going to get the same outcome, but holy shit, I do not agree with your reasons to be here. Or I think you might not be telling you the truth about your reasons to believe here. Maybe you actually are a little bit more humanist, but you want to attribute it to your Christianity. And I assume if you were put into that situation, you would want to talk to them about whether or not he was in fact Iron Man. But I don't know you, Angel. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you're not a skeptic. Maybe you're not. Well, I hope you at least aspire to skepticism if you're not. I'm hoping that it's your skepticism that's pulling you away from it.
Well, of course. I'm very open-minded. That's why I'm calling this show. And,
I don't know that I call open-minded and skepticism synonymous, but there's some differences. No, some people think open-minded means that you will entertain anything even well past when you have no reason to do so. So, for example, people have brought me like Bruce Lipton stupid, you can meditate your DNA into changing, and that's how you make significant evolution happens in your lifetime. And I, who actually understand evolution, go, nope, not even a reason to entertain that because this, and this, and then get accused of not being open-minded. So,
I don't
care for the phrase.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's crazy because like with my faith, it's definitely shaking. Like I remember there was this like huge event where this like pastor came in, and then this guy with a wheelchair, he came in, and the pastor was like, I'm gonna make this guy walk. And then the guy, he starts praying, and then the guy in the wheelchair like gets up. And then everyone's like, oh my God, like it's crazy, like he can walk and shit. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, like, you for real?
Totally ignoring that the overwhelming majority of people who use wheelchairs do have some amount of mobility outside, that not all people who use wheelchairs are actually paralyzed from the waist down. Angel, so we may move on here, but I don't know, because you had said at the beginning that you want to keep your faith strong or something along those lines. So the two things I want to say is, one, somebody in live chat said, Flanders, can I vote for Maggie Simpson too? You can, but unfortunately it's Maggie Taylor Simpson. Should I have said Maggie Taylor Simpson? Would that have made more sense? Anyway, Angel, why is it that you want to keep your faith? Why do you want your faith to stay strong?
I think it's honestly just like it just makes me just like feel good. I'm gonna be so honest with you. It makes me feel good. It gives me a sense of comfort, and not only that, but I'm kind of like scared to know what it's like outside of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I very much know what you mean. Firsthand know what you mean, because
go ahead, Matt. Last week's show.
Because sorry.
Last week on the Hang Up, I read an email from someone who's struggling and wondering, they've been an atheist for like 8 years now, and they're like, I can't change what I believe, but it's been miserable, and was it worth it? And while I can appreciate people's, hey, I'd rather not have a crappy life and everything else, and that's cool, but I care about what's true, and I care about what's true more than whether or not it's comforting.
Yeah.
And while I can understand why some people don't share that, what could possibly be so comforting about a God that you have no good reason to believe is there, that goes away when you acknowledge that?
It's just like, it's honestly just like the atmosphere. Like I go to church and everyone's singing and everyone's happy, and it's like, if I leave that, like, what's going to replace that? Like, I don't know if you
Angel,
guys.
wait,
I think
Angel, was this the church that is shaming you for being friends with your gay person, your gay friend?
yes.
So what's behind that? Everybody's singing, everybody's happy, everybody with a smile on their face is learning who to hate and how to discriminate. Is it okay if Nazism was the happiest movement in the world? Would you become a Nazi?
No, you're right.
No, it can't be because of the joy. It can't be because of happiness. And let me ask you a question, Angel. You get to be the friend of the gay person. How's that happiness working out for the gay person? How's that affecting your gay friend's life? All of those happy people getting together, deciding how gross and filthy that gay person is.
You're right. Yeah, it's really, it's not fair to my friend now that, like, I actually do think
Yeah.
about it.
Would you call,
But
it's okay if the answer is no. Would you call your gay friend like a member of your chosen family? Are you very close?
yeah, like, they're my
Okay.
best friend. Like,
So your happy community church where everybody gets together and sings is literally trying to destroy your friend's family and take you out of it. That's not worth it. That's not worth the comfort and the joy you get from singing songs with a bunch of people who all agree that when we die, we're all going to get to go to a special party, but not your friend because he touched a penis and he's fucked. He's going to hell. He's going to be, our loving God that we're so happy to be singing about is going to torment him for eternity. And if you just associate with him, you're at risk too. To me, my problem was the statement you had made that I want to keep my faith strong. So here is my question to you. If your faith is untrue, would you also say you hope that your faith completely dies?
yes, because
Good.
I don't want to waste my time believing in something that's not true.
Good. So instead of going, this is the trap you set for yourself. If you go, my goal is to keep my faith strong, you're not seeking then the truth. You're seeking the things that keep your faith strong. I don't do that with things I believe are true. Evolution, I don't go and only seek, I'm only going to accept evolution, and now I'm only going to seek that which affirms it. I'm happy to hear people's contentions with evolution. I happen to be educated well enough on it to know that most of them just have a fundamental misunderstanding. But if something better came along, I would shift and change it. You're sitting in a position where you've already admitted this is a family-destroying organization who teaches with smiles on their faces people to hate each other. So kind of back to Matt's question, what could possibly be comforting? But now instead of what Matt was just saying broadly about Christianity, what could be comforting about that?
Well, now that, like, you're actually, like, talking about that actually brought a memory up in, like, my mind. I remember one of the family members, not family members, one of the members in church, they came out as gay, and I went to the church, and I thought I thought someone died. I thought it was like a funeral because, like, everyone was, like, crying and shit. And then I was like, I didn't care because, like, obviously, like, I'm an ally and stuff. But it's like, what if that was me? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's,
Yes. Yes, you're describing as both an atheist and as a humanist and as a socialist. I'm very familiar when people are describing their discovery of privilege, which is what you are describing. Privilege is that whole, like, not realizing how many great things you get because situationally it isn't you. And so you have an ability. Go ahead. Sorry.
Privilege isn't always I'm privileged as this. There's also the I'm privileged because I'm not this other thing.
Yeah.
So it's all relative.
Privilege is in this case, is your ability to filter out all of the people who were the problem and just see the smiling faces and the singing songs.
right. Yeah, I've never, like, actually, I don't know. I'm not really in an environment that that questions my belief because everyone around me thinks the exact same. But like now that you guys are actually like telling me and questioning me, it's very clear.
Yeah,
But wow.
we're gonna move on here in a second because we do have some more calls to get in the time we have left. But
Oh, sorry that I've been
no,
so
no, no.
long. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize.
No,
at
no,
all.
no. You were great.
It was my fault, if anything, not yours. Rewatch the call because honestly, I feel like I actually could talk to you for another hour. But I think right now you have a certain amount of stuff to assess that the best thing to do is boom right now. And then if next week you find that you're like, yeah, but I do still believe because of this. I still believe in this. I do believe in some sort of progressive Christianity because of reasons A, B, C, D. Call us back. You're somebody we want to hear from and hear the progress because I don't presume you're going to be an atheist tomorrow. If you are, great. But call back and
I think Angels has been an atheist for a while. Just prefers going to church.
Might be.
I don't
you're
know,
not alone.
man. I really don't know. I'm just gonna be so honest. It is very hard to let go of something you've known for your entire life. I'm gonna be honest with you. But like,
and how old are you? Without being rude.
In my heart, no. Like I'm 20, but like deep in my heart, like I just know that something isn't right.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that a 20-year-old is telling someone who was a committed believer until he was over 30 what it's like to give up a belief you've known your entire life.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be fine. 20 is 20. So first of all, 20 isn't your entire life. There's a lot more life to go. And in a few short years, you'll realize that 20 is more like the beginning of your life. Not, I don't even know if I can count years 1 through 17 as my life at all. Especially because once I broke free from a religion like yours, I realized I wasn't living my life. I was living a life prescribed to me and doing my best to, not very well, but doing my best to live both that life and all of these conflicting things I felt pulled towards. So, yeah, I do hope you will give that some time and think about what we talked about here.
Okay. Well, it was really nice talking to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Angel.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.
Do you know what I think is going to be a comment under this episode? It's going to be...
Was Matt high?
No, almost that. It's going to be, I've complained about Matt being too angry, but I don't think I wish he would do Zen mode because then Jimmy finds too many windows to talk. I think that's going to be, I don't
think that's going to be the issue.
They're going to be like, when Matt goes Zen mode, Jimmy talks way more and he has to stop.
I think there's been, anyway, let's stop poisoning the well and take another call.
Yeah, go ahead. Your pick.
Yep, I got it. Today, because I'm going to do this as an imitation because one of my favorite pinball machines of all time is Addams Family. And so Greed is on the line from Texas. Welcome, Greed.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I'm a polytheist, and I believe that at least some, if not the majority, of the stories of gods throughout history were based on actual gods.
Well, it says here you recently experienced a spiritual vision. What is that, and how do you know?
So I don't really have good evidence for it. It doesn't seem rational. It seems more like it was probably a delusion.
Okay, but why would you then believe it? And why would you tell me that you've had a spiritual experience if you believe it's more likely you've had a delusion? Why wouldn't you say, I think it's more likely I've had a delusion?
Because my feelings about it are strong enough to outweigh my logic.
So you care more about how you feel about something than whether or not you have good reason to believe it?
Not intellectually, I don't. But it's difficult to disconnect my feelings of something being true versus what I see as good evidence for it.
I no longer understand what you're saying, Greed. So go
I
ahead.
might be too neurodivergent to know what the fuck that even means. Can you restate it, Greed? You're saying you intellectually have worked out that it doesn't make sense, but after intellectually working that out, you still feel stronger than your intellectual exercise that it is true. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. Yes.
Then why? Okay, let me take a breath. Then why, when I asked you, is it accurate for me to say that you care more about how you feel about something than the evidence for it? Why did you say I was wrong? That's literally what you just said. Your feelings, you think, can trump the evidence.
So I don't think they can trump the evidence. I would prefer to believe something that is true, but I cannot beat out my feelings.
Okay. I might
literally hang on, Jimmy, because I'm about to lose my zen. You literally just did a roundabout from a no to end with the statement that you literally can't override your feelings. You and I should not speak anymore. I will let Jimmy take on the rest of this.
Well, I was just going to ask the question, so if you're saying that rationally, you know it doesn't make sense to believe, but your feeling doesn't overwhelm that, wouldn't that also mean that you believe no one should believe you? Correct?
As far as the spiritual, what feels to me like a spiritual vision goes, I do not think other people should believe that was an actual spiritual vision.
And they should, in fact, because you said that it was more likely a delusion, but your feeling is that it wasn't, that's stronger than your intellectual assessment. So, in fact, you also believe that if you told that story to anybody, they should believe it is a delusion. Correct? Following your line of thoughts.
That is correct.
Okay.
I want to note, even though I said I was done, that the note here from the call screener, I hadn't read the whole thing till just now. The whole thing reads, I recently experienced a spiritual vision. As I researched more about religious anthropology, how do I disconnect my intuition and belief from the actual evidence and avoid confirmation bias while still maintaining my imagination? So you're calling in to literally ask how to allow evidence to override your feelings. On multiple occasions, I asked you if that was the problem, and on every occasion that I said it, you said no, and then went on to describe it as exactly that. Here's how you do it, Greed. You do it by doing it. You do it by saying, I know what I feel, but I might feel that my socks are lucky, but that doesn't mean my socks are lucky. I might feel that this is a really good lottery ticket to buy, but that doesn't mean it's a good lottery ticket to buy. I might feel that this person loves me, but they may not love me. I may feel like this person wants to engage in a romantic relationship, but I shouldn't move forward on it until they fucking confirm it, rather than just going with what I feel, because I am not the world and my feelings don't necessarily represent the world. And so on that front, no matter how strong my feelings are, I'm not going to advocate for any position at all until I think I have sufficient evidence for it. That's how you do it. There's no easy way. There's no half-stepping. You just dedicate yourself to giving a fuck about whether things are more likely true than whether they feel good.
I might have one more piece of advice that I think Matt might really like. And Greed, you're in Texas, so you might even get to see Matt do it. Greed, go see a magician. Like, go watch a magician and go watch the way people react to things that you know are not actually magic. And yet there will be people there, unless told so, who will absolutely believe it's dark arts, demons, whatever else. And more than that, especially like Matt's great, but if you can see a mentalist, I feel like this would even more do this sort of thing. I know you do some mentalism, Matt. I'm talking like the
mostly.
Okay, all right, fine. Fair enough. I haven't seen your act, so I've seen some of the stuff you've done some of the stuff at the house with me.
So something you haven't seen is slightly less impressive than something else you haven't seen.
So go see Matt. Again, I've seen some of the tricks that we've hung out in your closet, Matt. Matt and I are in Matt's closet.
Come out of the closet,
sometimes.
Jimmy.
What's that?
Come out of the closet.
Come on out.
Jimmy.
Come on out. But yeah, go watch Matt or a magician if there's one that's more accessible to you.
A good one.
Because I seriously, all I'm hearing is I'm falling for the trick. And I'm going in my head, oh, the exciting explanation is way cooler than the one that is probably actually true. And I hate to, it's almost one of those things where you're like, with some people, you almost have to tell them, go watch The Magician and then maybe Google how is that trick done. I kind of don't like recommending that to people because it does ruin magicians, but you might need it, Greed, because you're just falling for the trick. And it's largely going to be because of social conditioning and the fact that you live in a world that loves those tricks. But yeah, go see a magician. Go see Matt, the magician, please. The Incredible Mentalist.
I don't think I'm performing anywhere.
We'll get you one. We'll make it a part of the LineCon when we finally do it. Greed, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, and I was just listening to you.
Yeah.
So I've got some good notes here. So Matt said to dedicate myself to not believing something until there's good evidence. And I would infer that I should ignore my feelings when it comes to making choices.
Not entirely, but look, I make feelings-based choices all the time, but over something huge, like, am I experiencing a supernatural other realm, a spiritual vision, when dreams are possible, when delusions are possible? Allegedly, if you ever did PCP in your life, you can have a second free hit at a random point in your life. There's lots of reasons things can happen. And I would sit there and I would go, I'm going to assume, because delusions are popular and magic is unproven, because delusions have been proven many times and actual magic is unproven, that it's probably the delusion.
Well, part of the problem is that he already acknowledges something is probably a delusion, but wanted to stick with it anyway. Yeah. I'd say at a minimum, if you're convinced something's probably a delusion, you definitely should just let that one go. That's the minimal, though.
So I have a bit of a follow-up question. If I continue to ignore my feelings about telling me what to believe for these big decisions, will that help train my mind to be more skeptical and avoid falling for the trick, as you put it?
It's not ignoring your feelings, it's assessing your feelings.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more about training your feelings. If anything, what you're trying to do is build a really good bullshit detector. You're trying to because we don't have time every time somebody presents us with something to be, oh, is that real? Is that true? And the world's getting worse about this. Yeah. How many images do we come across every day where it's like, ooh, is that real or is that AI? And it's going to apply not just to images, but it's going to apply to news stories. It's going to apply to audio things. It's going to apply to full-on video, done up in Unreal Engine 7 with the best AI stuff. And you're going to be like, wow, at what point do I have reason to believe this? And it's about, in part, training your gut so that the snap decisions you make are closer to accurate, but you don't ever put more confidence in any of your views than the evidence justifies. So you might just be barely convinced. And then when somebody's like, I'm pretty sure that's AI, look at this. And you're like, oh, yeah, well, we'll hold off on that. We won't take it as real. Finding the resources to verify things. It's not just toss your feelings out. It's about, I make decisions based on my feelings fairly regularly. But my feelings have been honed by my brain, by my reasoning, by my desires. And figuring out how to put those things into check. Whereas I don't just run around with the sort of reptile mind of I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do and let me, club woman overhead, take back to cave, that type of thing, that thinking that, we had in the past or were portrayed as having in the past. We've overcome that. Are we better than that? Yeah. Can we be that bad? Yes. And part of the problem that I see is that a lot of people get convinced of things that aren't true or that they don't have any good reason to believe are true. And they look at those things and they say, oh, this is harmless. Thinking I had a vision, it's not harmful at all. It's nothing. It doesn't impact any other beliefs. It's not hurting anybody. It's not making any declaration about what anybody should do. But if you think that you had a potentially delusional vision, but you got something, let's say, important out of it, or you got some piece of insight where even if the vision itself wasn't true, but the thing that you gleaned from it, an understanding of reality, proved useful, and then you had it happen again and you put a little more confidence in it, and then eventually you get to the point where you're telling other people about these things and they start to experience things as well, whether or not they count as spiritual visions or whether they count as insights from your spiritual vision. And then that carries on. And the next thing you know, you've written the book of Revelation. Next thing you know, you've started a doomsday cult that is waiting for the aliens to come and take them away. Everybody looks at these as if, hey, beliefs like this aren't going to hurt anybody. Okay, well, tell that to the people who ended up in Heaven's Gate. Tell to the people who died in Waco. The fact of the matter is, no belief that you have in your head lives in a vacuum. The process that led you to reach one conclusion can and almost certainly will be used to help you reach some other conclusion. And if it's flawed and it led you to think that a delusion was a spiritual vision, how catastrophic could that be?
Yeah.
10 steps down the road.
Yeah. Well, all right. I know I didn't really defend my beliefs, but I really appreciate the advice you've given me, and I'm going to take note of that and do my best to see what I can do about being a little more skeptical and not believing things as quickly.
Just take your time. Keep asking questions. That's it.
Yeah, we definitely prefer when people answer honestly instead of just defending their beliefs when they realize they're indefensible. So don't harp on yourself for that. That's good.
All right.
Let's see how
thank you so much.
Thanks, Greed.
Thanks, Greed.
All right. Bye.
Straight to the vault.
What? And that's from what? Addams Family Pinball?
Addams Family Pinball. You spell greed, opens the vault to get another ball lock. Thing comes and takes away another ball, and then you get the Showtime multiple, and it's Raul Julia going Showtime. It's freaking brilliant, and legitimately, it's not just one of my favorite. I'm pretty sure if you Googled top 10 pinball machines of all time, it's probably still in the top 10.
Let's find out.
Probably. There've been some new ones that I haven't checked, but like when I was playing regularly, it was Addams Family, Twilight Zone, Medieval Madness, one or two more Jones. I could probably name up near the tops. Yeah.
Addams Family looks like it's holding the number 7 slot. Lord of the Rings is up there. Star Trek, Monster Bash.
Monster Bash is amazing. A lot of fun. We have one more call.
Monster Bash is what Jimmy and Matt were doing in Matt's magic closet. All right. Moving on. Doug in Utah, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Don't mess this up, Doug. I've held my zen. You're probably going to be the last caller. There's no pressure.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of anxiety right now, so hopefully.
Me too. Actually, no, that's a lie. I don't.
I always do. Go ahead.
All right, let's go. Let's let Doug present what he would like to present.
So the question today is it reasonable to believe in God? Is that right?
That was the one we put on the title in the poll. Yep.
Well, I want to propose that it's intelligent to not believe in God. but it can be reasonable to believe in God.
Okay.
Present
I just see
away.
those as two different. Sorry?
Present away.
So reason is really why is the answer to why. Or, yeah, so you asked the question, why is there a God? And there's a reason. So reasonable, I think as humans, we don't fully understand how we function psychologically, you know, biologically. There's a lot of stuff about us. So there is potentially a want or a need to feel comfortable, like we talked about earlier, to feel like we have a sense of direction or morality. I think morality can be replaced or synonymous with God. So is it reasonable to believe in a God?
What?
That question, I think, is yeah, just because of morality.
Why
Well,
on
I'm
earth do
off.
you think that God and morality can be synonymous?
Well, that's just my understanding of God. Like, let me put this in context. I believe in the flying spaghetti monster. So
Oh my fucking
third of a
God.
religion, but it's intelligent to believe in that, but not necessarily reasonable. Does that make sense?
No, because that's also the opposite of what you were proposing. You just said it's intelligent to believe in the flying spaghetti monster, but it's not reasonable. But you called to say that gods are reasonable to believe in, but not intelligent. So you just reversed it for a god that you also don't actually believe in. You don't actually believe in the flying spaghetti monster, Doug. That's absurd.
No, I don't. No,
But you said you did, which almost completely killed my Zen.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was saying as an example. That's an example of a religion that I could believe in. I'm sorry, I guess I misspoke. And you're right, I did misspeak. Is it reasonable to believe in the flying spaghetti monster? Yes. Is it intelligent? No. Yet that's what I meant to say.
What on earth makes you think it's reasonable to believe in this flying spaghetti monster?
Just because the answer to the question, why is there a God, is there's a reason. And I think just as human beings, psychologically, we need to find a reason to choose. Morality is a choice that we make, and God oftentimes represents what that basis of morality is. So choosing your morality, I think, is synonymous with choosing a God. And is it reasonable to choose a morality? Yeah. And is it reasonable
Can
to
I
choose a
choose
God?
a morality
Yeah.
without a God? Can I be a secular humanist?
Yes. Absolutely.
Then what you just
100%.
said isn't true. They aren't synonymous. Morality and God aren't synonymous. If I can have
No, they're not, according to us. That's why I say it's intelligent to not believe in a God.
No. We're talking about what's reasonable. You just said that God and morality are synonymous. And then in the next question, you acknowledge that they were not. Therefore, reasonably, no, it isn't reasonable to believe in a God, because you don't have a reasonable God. You gave a definition of God and took back the definition on reason. You used reason to take the definition back the next sentence.
I had this problem earlier with my terminology. Maybe there's a basis level of terminology that I need to understand with you guys so I can communicate well.
You go ahead and define whatever word you think we're missing here.
I don't know. So
reasonable. What does the word reasonable mean?
It means to have a judgment or a logic to why.
Okay.
No.
Is that what you're asking?
No, sure, but Matt, I wouldn't agree with that definition. Would you agree with that definition?
Being reasonable means you're consistent with reason, and if that's what he's advocating for.
Whereas
I'm just saying the power of the mind.
I'm just trying to get anywhere close, because there's absolutely nothing about this call that doesn't feel ridiculous and trollish in the confusion. And I don't think that that's correct. I don't want to just, I don't just want to go at my feet. Maybe, Doug, are you saying that it's understandable that people might believe in a God, even if they don't have a good reason?
Yes.
Do you think we were unaware of that?
No, but the question.
Do you think anybody
the-
is unaware of that?
I guess not. No.
Yeah. All right. So if
But
you
isn't
called
that the
in,
point of the conversation?
no. Why on earth would we have the point of the conversation be to call in and tell us shit we already know?
Sorry, can I ask a question? I might have solved it, but maybe I didn't. Doug, do you believe that a bad reason is still a reason, therefore makes a belief reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. Holy shit. Was that what you were tracking, Matt? The phrase reasonable doesn't mean any reason, including bad ones. Doesn't just
Why
mean...
not?
Because words have meaning, and if you're going to call it and say reasonable, yes,
you maybe call that reason-ish, and then you could reason-ish your way to go actually reading about reason so that you understand how reasonable is normally used rather than reason-ish or reason-if or reason-light or whatever else. But that's not what reasonable means. Reasonable means you are consistent with the best reason.
Exactly.
I see. So you're equivocating reasonable with
excuse
morality,
me. Equivocating.
Okay, you are a troll. You are now obviously a troll because you're definitely obviously a troll now, and you're not going to harsh my zen, nor are you going to waste any more time on the show. You're so obviously, pathetically, embarrassingly dishonest that we're done now.
To call it equivocating would to suggest that we were switching
You really are,
in
Doug.
a colloquial
Say goodbye, Doug.
definition. Yeah,
Say goodbye, Doug.
Wrong word.
Hey, goodbye,
why
Doug.
are you-
Hey, goodbye, Doug. Say goodbye, Doug.
The whole thing was dumb. Not doing it.
When you come back after having this explained to be like, well, now you're equivocating on the blah, blah. You didn't understand any of the topics. There's also no way you understood equivocation.
It's hilarious too, because let's say they were Doug, he was being honest about the I wasn't, I genuinely thought. It's really funny how we had moment after moment of, oh, sorry, from context, you don't understand my definition. What I mean is this. Oh, sorry, from context, what I mean is this. Oh, wait, you guys are using a different definition that I didn't ask for. But by the way, the context of what we mean by reasonable is fucking obvious in a question like, is it reasonable to believe in God? Is it consistent with good reason? Is it sensible? Does it maintain logical flow? There are plenty of definitions I would have accepted. And that's why when you were having that exchange, that's why I jumped in to ask the question. Because suddenly I realized what it was and was just like, I prefaced it by saying, it's okay if you tell me no, because I thought it can't be this, but this is the only thing that I could follow it being. This is the only way it makes sense. I thought for sure a no was coming, and yet there we were. Dragon, thank you so much for screening today. You're a fucking boss today.
Yeah, you should definitely get some good rest out of this. There's several people in chat that were asking Doug to call back and prove that he wasn't a troll, which I thought was brilliant. That's why I love our chat. Yeah. There's 2,500 people in here listening to just this absolutely ridiculous, dishonest babble of, oh, well, you're going to go, and they're all doing callbacks. It's awesome.
That was painful. Don't miss the shows this week. Don't forget tonight at 6:00. I even have the graphic ready, except for it would be up already if it was ready. Okay, now I have the graphic ready. Tonight at 6:00 Central Time, I will be doing a Zoom with our patrons. I will not be dressed up like a leprechaun. And you can also go to
I thought you were going to say lesbian.
No, not that either. I'm staying in Matt's magic closet. That's a really magical closet. It's keeping me in lesbian closet. And don't forget, you can hit up lionmerch.com. This week on the show, we have Skeptalk tomorrow with Forrest Valkai and Aron Ra. Speaking of which, I'm going to Aron Ra's channel to read the Book of Mormon. I'll probably only be there for a half hour, 45 minutes before I hop off to go do the Zoom thing. But we're going to go read the Book of Mormon over there. Then on Tuesday, catch Chewed Gum with Alyssa Lube and Erica Gutsick Gibbon. Catch Matt with Nick Fish on Wednesday, and catch Dr. Ben and Arden on Wednesday, and then I think it's you and I every Sunday for the rest of the month. I think, and the first Sunday of April. I think it's a
yeah. I get back from the debate on Saturday, so I'll definitely be here for Sunday on my birthday, March 31st.
Yeah.
That's when you all need to show up and give me all of your money so that I can buy more snakes.
All your money, he will turn to snakes. All the money.
We got new eggs the other day. I tell you, it'll happen all the time.
I saw that short. And honestly, it's funny because I shouldn't do it. But I've been watching your Epic Loot stuff, and I keep thinking, do I want a snake? And part of me does, but part of me thinks I can't pick which one I'd want. It's a whole problem. Anyway.
I'll get you a picture of a snake. In the meantime, thanks everybody. Patreon.com/calltheline.
We'll see you, everyone. Oh, that's actually supposed to be... Oh, okay, whatever.